This is recording in progress.
All right, so welcome. This is day 2 of the Taking Action Fairfield County workshops, and today is all about enabling clean mobility in the transportation sector. So MetroCog and WestCog together as the MSA for Fairfield County received a grant from the US EPA to create a climate action plan. So first, we just want to touch on what a climate action plan is and why we need to have one. So a climate action plan is a comprehensive roadmap to reducing greenhouse gas emissions, which identifies actions and steps that can be taken to reduce those emissions. And the reason we need one is because the number of days above 90 degrees is expected to rise from 5 to 25 by 2050. This is if we do nothing. The average annual precipitation is expected to increase by about 4 inches per year, and sea level is expected to rise by up to 20 inches by 2050. So our climate action plan for Fairfield County, we adjusted our boundaries to include the entirety of WestCog and the entirety of MetroCog. Our plan commits to the state's targets, which are to reduce emissions in the state from 2001 levels by 45% in 2030 and by 80% in 2050. So EPA's climate pollution reduction grant, we received money to put together a plan to do this. This was a 2-phase grant, starting with a priority climate action plan, which was submitted to EPA in March of 2024. The basis of this plan is a GHG inventory analyzing and quantifying the GHG sectors and priority reduction measures that can be taken. Following the PCAP, we refined the GHG inventory to look at more local sources where possible. We completed a public survey focused on the types of actions that the region is interested in taking towards reducing GHG emissions. We worked with our municipalities to solicit their feedback on these measures. And right now, we are developing our comprehensive climate action plan, which is a draft version will be due to EPA on August 1, and we will be working on formatting and finalizing that draft, which will be open for public comment in the fall. And then today, the Taking Action event, we wanted to bring to municipalities, the public, some of the ideas throughout the region that we found in doing this that we think are really great, and ideas for implementation that can be taken towards getting started on some of these measures. So today's all about the transportation sector. Sorry for what we're looking at here is the orange, the 37%. So as you can see, transportation and buildings are our 2 highest emitting sectors where we have the potential for the most action in the region. While we came up with measures across transportation, buildings, electric power, waste, agriculture, and environmental protection, today we're here to talk about our transportation sector measures. So shifting modes and enabling clean mobility. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Nick, who's going to give a brief overview of what these measures are, and then we'll jump right to our speakers because today's all about them and hearing from the fabulous ideas that are going on, and hopefully you'll learn something that you can take back to your community, spark some ideas.
All right. Thank you, everyone, first and foremost, for coming. We really appreciate you either taking the trip or taking your time to join us on Zoom. Thank you, Lindsay, for that introduction. I'm going to get into into our 2 measures. We've sort of split our transportation measures into physical and technological measures. So on the physical side, we have a whole slew of infrastructural changes meant to facilitate a mode shift. So that includes complete streets, that includes transportation demand management programs, looking towards more mixed use and transit-oriented development, public transit improvements, and looking towards other more holistic measures like green infrastructure that could serve to reduce greenhouse gas emissions bit by bit on our streets. And the second is the technological side. So this is enabling electric vehicles through charging networks, through different types of legislation. This is through improving our fleets to incorporate more electric vehicles, and by supporting intelligent transportation systems like signals, like our tracking and data systems, all in an effort to reduce those transportation emissions. So I'll give you guys a quick run through for today. Every hour is going to be a different sector. So to start, we're going to be looking at mode shift and complete streets. Then we're going to be looking at green infrastructure. And then lastly, we'll finish up with clean mobility and clean vehicles. Each presenter will have about 10 minutes. We'll have 4 per sector. At the end, we'll have a roughly 10-minute panel style Q&A. And then you guys will get a 10-minute bathroom break just to chill and talk amongst yourselves for a bit. So I'll go through who's presenting today, and then we can get right into it. So first, we'll have Bill Hurley and Mega Jane from the town of Fairfield. They're the engineers there, and they've done incredible work, incredibly busy. They have over 12 to 15 traffic calming projects in the works currently. So I'm very happy they were able to give us the time to be here. Next, we have Luke Buttenweiser from the city of Stamford, and they've done incredible work in their Vision Zero efforts. They have, in my opinion, the most ambitious and most forward-thinking Vision Zero set of policies in the state, where they're looking to completely eliminate serious injuries and fatalities on the roadways by 2032. And they've done that through their Vision Zero action plan and a whole bunch of other quick build measures. Next, we have Adam Weber from the city of New Haven, who is an engineer there. And they've been able to implement a great network of protected and separated bike lanes, as well as a whole bunch of other complete streets measures, which have made New Haven a really pleasant place to walk and bike. And it's getting better and better over time. And lastly, for the mode shift section, we have Sarah Roy, who is one of the leading transit advocates in our state. And she does great work in helping people find different ways to get out of their cars and make their commute or any sort of journey more sustainable in an effort to reduce those emissions. Next, for green infrastructure, we'll start with Chadwick Schroeder from Bridgeport's Sustainability Department. He's omnipresent in Bridgeport's neighborhoods, works a lot with the residents in order to get a whole bunch of programs related to green infrastructure, pollinator gardens, so on and so forth, implemented in the city. Then we'll have Dr. Mike Dietz, who's extension educator from UConn, and he'll talk about how to implement and how to manage stormwater systems, especially those related to transportation systems. Then we'll have Nicole Davis, who's a watersheds project manager from Save the Sound. She'll be talking about what makes a successful green infrastructure project, and that ranges from small sort of community projects to large scale ones. And then lastly, we'll have Colleen Murphy-Dunning from the Hickson Center for Sustainability and the Urban Resources Initiative at the Yale School of Environment. And she's been very instrumental in helping the city of New Haven install over 200 bioswales. So her expertise is really valued here. And then for the last section of the day, we'll have Todd Fontanella and Amal Malik from WestCog. They did a whole research paper on enabling clean vehicles and the sort of opportunities and pitfalls that towns should look out for. Then we have Kevin Moss, who is a senior manager of clean transportation at CT Greenbank. So he's talking about the investments that Greenbank have made and are continuing to make to help our municipalities and our regions electrify their fleets, especially helping the state meet its bus electrification goal. Then we have Graham Curtis from C2DOT, who will talk about the state's bus electrification program, specifically talking about City of Stamford. And then we have Daphne Dixon, who is the executive director of the Clean Transportation Coalition and Live Green CT. And she and her team have helped countless municipalities across Connecticut amend their zoning and their approach to clean transportation. So with that being said, I'll introduce our first speaker, the Bill Hurley. We also have Mega Jane joining us online.
Hi.
Pressing buttons or can you hear me? Yep. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Enabling clean mobility. To the Fairfield Engineering Department, that means pedestrians, vulnerable users, bicycles, e-bikes, and scooters when properly operated, and using transit, trains and buses, even school buses, to promote health and environmental benefits. To encourage various modes of transportation, the town has adopted Vision Zero and Vision Zero policy and passed a complete streets ordinance and recently expanded its sidewalk and bike networks through programs such as STEEP, LOTSIP, community connectivity, and carbon reduction grants. The town has or will construct new sidewalks along Route 1 in Southport near the transit stops and close to the railroad station in Southport, Round Hill Road near Fairfield University and Fairfield Center train station, Reef Road near the town center and beaches, and Kings Highway East neighborhood. Old Post Road near the library and town hall, Sherman Green areas. We connected an Old Post Road sidewalk to Route 1 to a brand new bus shelter this past year in Southport with the assistance of MetroCog and GBT. Internal projects, traffic calming related, include Villa Avenue, bulb outs and medians, Reading Road roundabout, which reduces speeds and is a safer mode of a countermeasure for a tricky intersection that had a lot of stop sign violations. And planned projects are McKinley School, encouraging the safe routes to school, Kings Highway Phase 3, the Four Corners in Stratfield, Grassmere and Post Neighborhood, Stratfield Road RSA, and Fairfield has also applied for the Safe Streets for All planning and demonstration projects, while MetroCog has listed Fairfield Center for its Phase 2 projects. Moving forward, Fairfield has created the Fairfield Traffic Authority, which has approved relatively quick build demonstration projects along South Benson Road, Mill Plain Road, Sturgis Road, Reading Road, and Kings Drive. To describe these projects in more detail and their proposed countermeasures is Mega Jane. Mega, are you available?
Yes, can you hear me? And thank you, Bill. So today I'm going to talk about some of the upcoming projects and some of the projects that are implemented.
Co-host.
Yeah.
I should have given Nick a little heads up on the transition.
All right, Mega, you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
All right, we can't hear you.
No.
Oh, I have unmuted myself.
No, we can hear you. Just
Okay.
let's try this. All right, try now.
Yeah, okay. Can you hear me now?
Not really.
Okay, so the people over here can't hear you, but that's fine.
This is why we at least had one in attendance. We're both very busy, but we knew that this was important. All right, Mega, I guess I'll try to go through the slides.
Okay.
Okay, if you can maybe get the X out so you can see that. Okay, on this one here, we have Mill Plain Road and Duck Farm. This is about not even a quarter of a mile from the Riverfield School. And on this one, we have some of our own ideas, but we also reached out to a third party consulting engineer to see if they had any different or fresh ideas. And between in-house engineering design and this consultant, we've come up with some ideas. This one here will show a raised crosswalk in the area of Round Hill and Mill Plain Road. Fairfield only has a very few raised crosswalks, and this one being on a main road and Mill Plain Road. This will be our first, one of our first demonstration projects to go along. Not shown here, but shown to the far right is a little bit of crosswalk or center line hardening. We're going to try that as well. We have some bulb outs or bump outs on that. And we hope that this is a very busy intersection. And you can see there's 3 crosswalks all in an area of about 200 feet. So we're hoping that this will resolve a lot of problems for the student population and families that walk to the school and nearby points of interest.
We could just point this towards the computer. No, it's
And now the clicker isn't working.
Okay, we can move forward on here.
Oh, okay. I'll just say next and then you can try it.
oh, it's the computer that's frozen.
Yeah. For those who don't know, my wife and daughter say I should go over to one of our, yes, that's the next one, where
Okay,
to
it was the
ruin,
computer, so this is
Oh,
good.
where I could ruin their technology. Anyway, so yeah, the next one here is also on Mill Plain Road at Uncleville Road, and you can see the skewed intersection. And we have a couple of proposals here, maybe adding cat tracks, extending islands, reducing the curb radius. Pretty straightforward stuff, but if each one of these countermeasures improves safety, say by 5%, you add them all together, we may see like a 30% safety increase. The next one, do I just? Okay. This is Mill Plain and Sturgis. This one here is, you can see there's a really long crosswalk that's involved there. We had asked the state if we could extend the median, but because of truck turning traffic, we were unable to do that. So we came up with the next approach of at least using the island or median as a kind of a refuge point. And reducing the curb radiuses here and striping the crosswalks and adding a new crosswalk on the west side. So I just hit this one here. Okay. On Bronson Road, this one was interesting. This one wasn't quite on our radar, but a couple of things have happened recently. To the right of these yellow lines, the town was able to purchase a property, and they're going to have it as a nature, conservation nature education center. And so we'll be looking at this intersection carefully because, again, with any other nature center, you expect, families and a lot of students from school to be attending. So we want to make sure this area is safe. So we're going to, again, do the simple stuff of low-hanging fruit of striping and signage, grade changes. We'll have to look at different aspects of how a turning lane, maybe to reduce it, kind of a mini road diet instead of, you don't really see it, but where it says Bronson Road, the Bronson, that's a left turn lane, and then the road is a straight maneuver. So we may reduce that to 1 lane as a traffic calming measure. Yep.
I'm going to interrupt you for 1
Sure.
second.
Yep.
Megan, can you try speaking again?
Yeah, can you hear me now? Yeah, I'm speaking.
All right, keep going.
No, okay. On this one, Sturgis and Bronson. Oh, this is just from a different angle and different things. We can route the traffic around and, basically channelize the traffic as another way. So as you can see, there's all sorts of different traffic calming measures that can be implemented. South Benson roadway, quick build. We have a gateway median. You can see that towards the left. We're making the sidewalk crosswalks, I'm sorry, more perpendicular as much as we can, because again, that's a skewed intersection. Sometimes you have to go with what you have or work with on that. And then over to the right there, we're looking at one of our first raised intersections on Riverside Drive and South Benson. So that will be we'll try to do the demonstration project for there as well. Yeah, okay, yep. And then on Villa Avenue, these are so all those ones that I just showed you were proposals. Here's some of the ones that we've recently done. Villa Avenue, you can see the bulb outs. We narrowed the travel lanes to 9 and 10 feet. And then this way we were able to provide bike shoulders. Maybe someday if the residents and the town can come to agreement, maybe there'd be bike lanes there. But right now there are a lot of people that park. So right now it's just a bike route. We did median islands there as a traffic calming measure. There's another view of it. Okay. And I guess there were some pictures on Reading Road roundabout or no? If not, we
No.
only have a minute left. But the town has Reading Road roundabout, and that was met with a little bit of opposition, and people don't like change. We find that it's been pretty successful with one exception. Most of the engineering documents say to use for a, sort of a mini roundabout, SU 30 or bus 40. What we found out was that there were dump trucks with 60-foot trailers, landscaping trailers that were using it. And so some of our extruded curb had gotten wiped out. And so we're going to be fixing that and putting truck blister aprons in areas, because if we design it for a 67-foot long vehicle, there's not going to be much traffic calming. So sometimes you have to kind of come up with ways. Oh, there it is. Thank you. That's how it was. We're still working on the pavement markings and final signing. And there were a couple spots, as I said, where the curbing will be replaced. But overall, we're pretty happy with the results there. And as you can see, all different traffic calming measures. We try to use NACTO, ITE, traffic calming measures, AASHTO, whatever's available, we try to use. And then sometimes we even reach out to neighboring municipalities as well. Some of you, we've reached out in the audience here as well. We're working with the DOT. And I also wanted to mention, with 30 seconds or so to go, we're working actually even here with MetroCog and Sacred Heart on improvements in the university area, Jefferson Street, Park Avenue, Old Town Road. The DOT, MetroCog, Sacred Heart, the town of Trumbull, city of Bridgeport, town of Fairfield, all working together. So obviously, a lot of these projects have a lot of partnerships involved. And as part of the Complete Streets, we're always looking at for ADA sidewalk improvements, bike routes or bike lanes where feasible. And we've been working with the DOT on various road safety projects. And even internally, engineering, zoning, police, First Selectman's Office, and DPW are partners in achieving the town goals for safety and clean mobility. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's just not going on.
Luke's in person, so.
Wait. No, wait.
All right, and our next speaker is Luke from Stanford.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Get your presentation up real quick. Sorry, Matt. there.
You can use this if you want. Just try to get this away.
Okay, wonderful. Good morning, everyone. My name is Luke Buttonwieser. I'm the transportation planner here in the, well, not here, but for the city of Stamford. Today, I'm happy to talk to you about basically getting around Stamford, all the different modal changes that we have, as well as focusing a lot on our Vision Zero action plan and complete streets. So I work in the transportation, traffic, and parking department. Great team. Our main mission is to ensure the safe and efficient movement of people and goods within the city of Stamford. So basically, if it's on a road, we basically deal with it. However, the caveat to that is we do not fill potholes. That's very important. But if you get a parking ticket or stuck in traffic, that generally falls in our department. But basically, anything that kind of moves on the city streets of Stamford. Myself and then the team that I work with, my boss, Frank Batiste, is right here too. We're basically the ones helping you get around the city. So in September 2022, Mayor Caroline Simmons signed the Vision Zero executive order committing Stamford to Vision Zero, which is eliminating fatal and serious car crashes, pedestrian crashes, any really roadway fatalities by 2032. We're the first city and municipality in Connecticut to do so. We're very happy about that. We have some key tenets here that one death is too many. People make mistakes. We understand that no one's perfect. No one's a perfect driver. No one's a perfect pedestrian. So you want to design around people's, mistakes that they make essentially. People are also vulnerable. So that's all about harm reduction, inertia reduction. When you design our roadways, design it for people making mistakes, but also design it for reducing speeds and reducing generally the impact and harm that you would have in a crash. Safety is proactive, right? We're not trying to be necessarily reactive, but proactive. That's one of the main parts of our Vision Zero action plan, which was recently adopted by our planning board, is that we're looking, when we do our crash analysis, we're looking at roadways that have similar types of crashes, not just roadways that had crashes in the future. So we try to use a predictive measure saying, if this type of intersection has a lot of crashes, let's look at where this type of intersection is throughout Stamford too, and holistically address these types of dangerous types of locations. And then of course, reduce speeds, right? Simple physics, speed is what kills. So we try to reduce vehicle speeds is what reduces the severity of a crash. So one of the main things that we focus on really in Stamford is walkability and safety. We're really creating that multimodal environment where people feel safe walking, because pedestrians are the weakest link when you look at just, how you handle yourself in a crash. So if you make things safer for pedestrians, more walkable for pedestrians, you're not just creating a more multimodal city, but you're also creating a safer city, right? So what's safety for pedestrians? I say safety for bikes, what's safety for transit riders, and what's safety for drivers. And also pedestrian, you're always going to be a pedestrian at some point, whether it's when you park your car to walk where you're going, or you're waiting for the bus, or something along those lines, even just walking the dog down your street. So really, again, focusing on walkability and safety, which also helps create a more vibrant community as well. One of the things that we focus a lot on in the transportation department is just community building as well through public infrastructure. This is about multimodal. I know I was supposed to talk about Vision Zero, but I just want to touch on Stamp Forward. This is our state-funded microtransit program. Really has been a wildly successful program in Stamford. I think we've just been, it's overwhelming how much our ridership has been and how successful the program has been. Just some key stats that I really think is just fantastic. You can't see it, it's cut off a little bit, but 62% of riders are car-free. Right. So we are creating mobility options for people who do not have cars in Stamford. We're able to get around in different parts of the city. And then 42% of riders use this service for their primary mode of travel. So I think just those two stats right there show how we can, as a municipality and also as a state, thanks to them funding it, we're able to create a really great mobility option for them. And these are just some quotes over here, but these top 10 locations, right? This is where people are going. Stamford Transportation Center, busiest transportation hub in the state. 45 minutes into Grand Central. We're connecting people to jobs up and down the corridor, as well as within Stamford. Ridgeway Shopping Center, that's just like where a supermarket is, right? Stamford High School, we're connecting students where they want to go. Target, it's one of the main supermarkets actually downtown in Stamford. Rogers School, again, just a school. Children's Learning Center, that's one of Stamford's main daycare centers. Lawn Hill Terrace is actually an affordable housing development from our housing authority, and Bedford and Broad Street's right in the heart of our downtown, and Stamford Hospital. So what this shows really is we're connecting people to school, we're connecting people to jobs, we're connecting people to food, healthcare, And it's really just, I think, goes to show what a great mobility option that we're having here in Stamford, and also offering just another way to get around the city for a cheap and, efficient way to get around. So I just want to talk about a few of our construction projects that we've recently done that go along with this concept of economic development, community building, roadway safety, and complete streets. So this is our Lower Summer Street project that just finished up last year. It's really mainly a sidewalk widening project, but one of the things I wanted to talk about on the left here, this was the road in about 2021. This was the road in 2022, and this is the road in 2024. So we went from one single lane road, parking on both sides of the road. During COVID, we actually removed parking on both sides, added outdoor dining as a quick build measure, essentially. So during COVID, we eliminated 140 parking spaces in downtown Stamford, transformed them into outdoor dining. We now currently have about 4,000 seats outside in Stamford today where you can dine. Come on down. We have about over 100 restaurants. And then we had a capital construction project where we widened the sidewalks by 10 feet on both sides of the road, planted street trees, new lighting, and the entire roadway is raised up to sidewalk level for the whole stretch of the road, so we can create this. And this is what I think public infrastructure projects is all about. This is how we create community. This is how we do economic development. Every single month in Stamford downtown, we actually host a block party just like this. So we shut the road down to cars. People can take over the whole street. And it really, I love this photo. It's just, this is, again, community, this community building, this is social interaction. This whole block is restaurants. Before we did the project, half of them did not serve lunch. Now every single one of them serves lunch. And we actually have a few of these markets and restaurants staying open later. So now we're having more economic development activity and really just a thriving community that all focuses on roadway safety as well. So, I think I just want to note this as just really an example of what we can do with our roads in our municipalities. And then we're also doing another thing. Summer project in downtown Bedford and Forest Street. So parking lot that we've been closing off for the last 5 years for outdoor dining temporarily. This is it on the right over here. And then starting in, fingers crossed, September, we're going to be embarking on a $3.5 million capital reconstruction project to create a new public plaza from a parking lot, actually address the most dangerous crosswalk in the city, right crossing Forest Street and Prospect Street, by creating a 50-foot wide raised crosswalk, as well doing a new traffic signal, as well as several other raised crosswalks. So outdoor dining, planting 19 trees, green space, as well as traffic calming. So again, this holistic vision zero, complete streets, economic development, roadway safety, all kind of bundled into one thing. And then I just want to touch a little bit on quick build projects, something that we've been doing a lot of as part of our Vision Zero program. So these are some delineators in front of our middle school over here. These are also some delineators in front of our elementary school with some bump outs. This is currently under construction to receive full bump outs, as well as raised crosswalk. This is also under construction to receive full bump outs, as well as some drainage improvements and an RFB. So again, this idea of like going straight from delineators we had out for 2 years into capital construction is a really important thing that we try to do to address roadway safety. And then on the left here, this is the intersection of Washington Boulevard and Main Street. This is actually a state road. So we had received permission from the state of Connecticut Department of Transportation. We eliminated an entire travel lane, as right turn lane with delineators. We did center line hardening on a state road. And we also eliminated travel lane on a city road. So we're able to use quick build methodology, working with the state of Connecticut. And now we are in design on a LOTSA project to raise the entire intersection, which I believe will be the first raised intersection on a state road, as well as eliminate travel lanes and implement bioswales as well. And then this is Bedford and Forest. That's the bump out. That's the project as mentioned. And this is down at the Springdale train station too, where this is going to become a capital project with bump out. So again, this thread of, we use the Vision Zero action plan to identify areas where there's a high rate of crashes. We implement quickly the quick build measures using city crews. We have all this stuff in stock. We put these out for about 2 years or so as we're developing design plans and gaining funding. And then all these are going into for capital construction as well. So we want to move quickly, hence quick build, while we're working on building and making sure it also works. And it's also a great way to do community engagement, right? I can just clearly tell people this is what a bump out's going to be. It makes it go, it's, theoretical on a piece of paper to actually in real life so people can understand it better. So that's why I think quick builds are great. Great to see Fairfield's using them as well. Highly recommend using quick builds. And then, I just want to touch again on that last big picture. The city of Stamford is committed to making Stamford more walkable, more pedestrian friendly, more multimodal, as well as safe. We're just finishing up our 10-year master plan, our POCD. And a part of that is really focusing in a lot on more multimodal transportation, emphasizing Vision Zero, and making a place that everyone can live, play, and work and really enjoy their communities. And a large part of that is through our transportation infrastructure. So just want to say thank you. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
We're taking a 30-second break for some IT to try and get the sound through the speakers in the classroom. And we'll have the opportunity at the end of each topic, as Nick mentioned, to do a panel style Q&A. So all of the speakers you've heard from and are going to hear from, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions. You want to send Mike to the hallway to test the sound, like by unmuting?
Whenever it's ready.
Who's next? Okay.
So 3% on Zoom.
And our next speaker will be Adam, who's going to present on Zoom. And as a reminder, Adam is
The engineer from City of New Haven. You might also know him from YouTube and TikTok, where he has shown at this point millions of people New Haven's innovative work all across the city. And that's on the channel Everyday Engineering.
no problem at all.
We can also put the mic up to the computer speaker if nothing works.
Use the one up to PC.
That's loud though. Can you pick that up? Could
Yeah,
we
that's
just use
fine.
that?
The microphone's on, right? You're good talk. See if it's.
Hello? Hello?
Don't hear an echo.
I can turn the mics off and then.
Yeah, your mic's on here.
Use this to set that to be the lectern. The, this. Does that need to be set to this?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
What is it? You know,
That sounds good.
Yep. You're hired.
Thank you.
So one's.
I just got a job.
Yeah. Mhm.
All set?
All right. Okay. Adam, can you hear us?
We just need to mute all the mics.
Yep, I can hear you. How's the sound over there?
Oh, lovely. We could hear you. Thank you very much for
Awesome.
Whenever you're ready to go.
Mute your mic.
All right. Well, thank you all for having me today. Great presentation so far. My name's Adam Weber. I'm a project manager with the City of New Haven Engineering Department, and I'm pretty excited to show you some of the cool things that New Haven has been doing for walkability, bikeability, and rolling. So let's get started. So the engineering department of New Haven, I've been told, is pretty sizable. We've got 13 staff, about half of which are engineers, but we also have a facility manager, we have an architect, we have a landscape architect. So whenever possible, we try to do as much in-house design as possible, and then we'll consult out for some of the larger projects. So we are heavily dependent on grants. We do have some city budget line items for street reconstruction as well as sidewalk repair. But we're very heavily dependent on grants for our larger street projects. We love the LOTSIT program that's funded many improvements throughout New Haven. We've done some community connectivity grants as well as some DECD funding for roadway projects. So as the engineering department, we're responsible for major infrastructure in the public right of way as well as facilities. If our projects involve traffic signals, as they usually do in the city of New Haven, we'll coordinate with our transportation, traffic, and parking department. We've been collaborating with the city plan department this year for some of our recreational trail projects, and of course, parks when we improve our park spaces. So when we think about walking, biking, and rolling necessities around our city, ultimately we need a network that presents a better option than driving a car around the city. We have, I think, 30% of our households in New Haven do not own a car, but we want to encourage more people to get around in non-car modes. So ultimately we need that safe network, which kind of encapsulates the three things below it. We need an accessible network, right? If you have an intersection along a route that doesn't have ADA ramps, that's not a viable route for someone using a mobility device. So trying to get all of our intersections up to ADA compliance. We need a comfortable network. That's something that's sometimes a bit overlooked. But you think about maybe a sidewalk that's right up against a roadway, and maybe that roadway has no shoulder. You're essentially walking just a foot away from moving traffic, and that's not the most comfortable sidewalk. So trying to prioritize having some separation, a grass strip, a tree belt. Same for bike lanes, having a buffer or even protecting the bike lane makes it a comfortable way to get around. And ultimately, the big ticket item is having a connected network. If you're missing a sidewalk in one block and you have to force people to walk in the road, that's not going to be a great way to walk around. If you got a bike lane that drops out 100 feet before an intersection where you need it the most, that's going to be kind of an uncomfortable place for people to bike. So people need to know that there will be a continuous facility to get them where they need to go for their chosen mode of transportation. A couple years ago, the city of New Haven adopted the Safe Routes for All plan. This is just one page. It's a very big document. This is showing the final vision for our bike network to get around the city. This is a framework where every resident is close to some type of high comfort bike facility. And once you're on that network, you can get anywhere in the city and you'll know that there will be a facility to get you there. So obviously something like this, it's a very comprehensive plan. It will take a long time to get to that full build out, but this is very helpful to use when we're designing projects. If we have a street that we're redoing, we can check the Safe Routes for All plan and say, okay, what does Safe Routes for All say we need on this street? Oh, we need a protected bike lane. Okay, then maybe instead of having two sides of parking, we'll have one side so we can prioritize getting those bike lanes through there and work to build out this network. Something like this can also look a little bit daunting if your town has one. I think the easiest thing to do is to build off of your existing infrastructure. Like if you have a rail trail through town, you can build a spur off of that, connect it to a park, connect it to your town hall. And that's a good way to start instead of building just off in an isolated location. So one of the cool things we're doing here to kind of encapsulate that idea is our State Street Reconstruction Project. This is a DECD funded project because it's going to unlock some development parcels along the route. And we're doing roadway improvements to create some multimodal facilities. So as you can see here, we've got the Farmington Canal Trail coming down. We've got some infrastructure over on Water Street, and we're just filling in that gap right there. So we have this kind of 4-lane like mini highway through downtown. So what we're going to do, I could talk about this like for an hour, but so please contact me if you have any questions about the engineering about this. We're going to do a road diet, put all the cars on one side of the street over here, and then rip up the roadway and put in a new bike and pedestrian greenway over on this side. And then all these sliver parking lots between State Street and the railroad are going to get turned into development parcels. And so when we look at that in terms of our Safe Routes for All plan, we have the Farmington Canal Trail here. We've got the Water Street cycle track here. We have the East Shore Greenway coming down here in design. This is like the last gap to kind of fill in through downtown. And so instead of trying to build out the Safe Routes for All network all at once, what's the next best thing we can do to complete this big north-south spine? And that's fill in this gap in State Street, provide an opportunity for people to get around in non-car transportation right in the heart of downtown. So when we think about engineering projects, they're often very specifically tailored to their local context and require, a touch of local knowledge. But there are also a lot of, this toolbox of engineering solutions that are like true copy and paste solutions that you can just drop in anywhere and you can get some benefit for your residents. So one example of that was our Valley Street project, which we just wrapped up last winter. This was a LOTSIP project. We love the LOTSIP program. And this was a great example of just taking some of those standard engineering traffic calming solutions and just placing them at regular intervals along the route. So this is a spine route that serves the West Hills neighborhood, but there was a lot of speeding and not a lot of ways for people to safely cross the street. So big focus on pedestrian safety in here to help people walk around their own neighborhood. So a lot of the things we did 5 raised intersections along the route. Our residents love raised intersections. They're not only great for traffic calming, right, getting the same type of traffic reduction and speed as like a speed hump. It's also great for pedestrian accessibility, having that nice level crossing across the intersection. So just to the left of that photo, there's a convenience store. So we have a lot of pedestrians using this intersection. We also have put in a pedestrian median at one location. That's a great thing to do if you have wide shoulders along a roadway where they're not being used for bike lanes first, because then you can kind of bend out the lanes around the median, provide a place for pedestrians to cross one lane of traffic at a time. Here we have a nature trail that crosses Valley Street, so this was a great place to put it in. And you have drivers going around the island, adding in some traffic calming. Of course, bump outs, curb extensions are great. This was in a parking lane, so it helps shorten the crossing distance while also preventing illegal parking at the crosswalk. This one is actually a combination bump out and bioswale, because anytime you're altering the curb line, you have to deal with those drainage issues. So this was one way to get around that. And then speed tables. We have been doing speed tables a lot on routes that have a bus route on them. It's just a better comfort for the people on the bus, but it achieves the same traffic speed reduction as a speed hump. And I think one of the coolest things to this project, we had these really wide skewed intersections on the side streets along Valley Street. So while they were reconstructing the road, we thought, why not just tee up these intersections into a nice, tight crossing? You look at this intersection up in the top right, that's something like a 120-foot long crossing. There's no marked crosswalk. There's no ADA ramps. Now we have a nice, easy 30-foot crossing with ADA ramps. We have new crosswalks to get across the street. This is the community center for the West Hills neighborhood, so we have a lot of pedestrian traffic. So not only is that delivering some pedestrian accessibility and safety benefits right now, 15 to 20 years later, when this street has to get repaved again, that's so much less asphalt you have to mill and then repave and maintain in the future. So this was something that was a great benefit for the community, and we have heard a lot of compliments so far. So that was just a quick overview. Again, if you have any questions whatsoever about stuff that New Haven is doing, even if you want to come by to town and take a tour of some infrastructure, I'd be happy to lead you around. Thanks for having me today.
First off, thank you very much, Adam. Really appreciate you presenting.
Presentation. This up, down. Okay. All right, whatever.
Hi, everybody. If you don't mind, I'm going to stand out here because I'm short and I don't like standing behind those things. So as Nick mentioned, my name is Sarah Roy, and I'm an outreach and engagement specialist with CT Rides. Just a quick show of hands, who here in the audience has heard of CT Rides before? Yay. Okay. Well, for those who haven't, today's your lucky day because I'm going to tell you all about it. I like to start my presentations by telling you a little bit about myself. I am 48 years old. I did not own a car until I was 28 years old. And that is not the typical American suburban experience, right? So the reason I came to not own a car until I was 28 years old, I grew up in a town in Rhode Island with a bike path, a 14-mile bike path, literally down the street from my house. So from a pretty young age, I could get to a lot of places I wanted to go by bike, on foot, on rollerblades. It was the 90s. And then when I went to college, I went to UMass Amherst. And if you're not familiar with the Pioneer Valley, there's 5 colleges in the Pioneer Valley, and they all subsidize the public bus system from September through May. And you don't have to be a student or an employee to use it. Everyone any resident, anybody in the area can use the bus for free. So I could get to a lot of places I needed to go in college without a car. And then after college, I moved to Boston, and they had the T and the bus, and I had my bike. And so I didn't need to buy a car until I moved to New Hampshire when I was 28 years old. I still own that car. It's a 2005 Honda Civic. Her name is Betty, and she's my friend. And as much as I love Betty, I try not to use her when I can get to places on bike, foot, carpool, taking the train or the bus, because I tell you all this because this is not just a job for me. It's not just a paycheck. This is how I live my life. These are my values and my principles. And I feel very lucky to be in a job where I get to talk to folks and help them mode shift away from using their cars, just like I have been trying to do my entire life. So without further ado, I will go on to the agenda. Just quickly, just going to do a little intro about CT Rides, who we are, what we do. I'm going to talk a little more in depth about commuter tax benefits and also other mode shift incentives. Brush very lightly on amenities and infrastructure. Bill, Luke, and Adam did an awesome job with that. And then I know that we're going to have a Q&A afterwards, so that'll be great. So what is CT Rides? We are the Connecticut Department of Transportation's statewide mobility program. And we help organizations provide affordable, flexible travel options for employees, including public transit, carpooling, biking, and remote work, to reduce commuting costs, traffic congestion, and emissions. So in other words, mode shift is our mission, which is why I'm here today to talk about some of the actions you can take to promote and incentivize mode shift within your organization and your community. So one of the best mode shift options at your fingertips is commuter tax benefits, officially called Qualified Transportation Fringe Benefits. This federal program lets employees use pre-tax dollars for commuting costs like transit passes, van pools, and parking. That lowers their taxable income and reduces employers' payroll tax liability. Municipalities, although they're tax exempt, still pay FICA taxes, so this benefit can offer real savings while giving staff a meaningful perk. In 2025, employees can set aside up to $315 per month for public transit like bus or the train, van pooling in eligible vehicles, and qualified parking. So this program's run through payroll. You can either do it in-house or by a third party, and it's completely voluntary for employees. CT Rides can connect you with 2 reputable third-party providers if you're interested in talking to them about this. Are you wondering about bicycle commuter tax benefits? Well, unfortunately, the federal program was suspended in 2018, but many municipalities and employers offer local incentives that cover bike maintenance, storage, or even new commuter bikes. These programs reduce parking demand, support healthy, low-cost commuting, and are often deductible, making them a smart, sustainable investment for any organization. All right, so participating in commuter tax benefit programs offers big returns for municipalities in 4 key areas. First, reduce payroll costs. When employees use pre-tax dollars, those wages aren't subject to FICA taxes, saving the municipality up to 7.65% per dollar contributed. Second, it boosts recruitment and retention. Commuter benefits attract sustainability-minded and urban-based talent while improving job satisfaction and work-life balance. This is a real edge in today's competitive public sector market. Third, it supports sustainability goals. These programs reduce solo driving, lower emissions, and improve air quality, directly contributing to local climate action plans. So if you're working towards sustainable CT certification, this program, along with some others I'll mention today, helps to fulfill Action 6. And finally, it strengthens local transit. Higher ridership supports public transit systems. It helps maintain service levels and can even increase eligibility for state and federal funding, all while encouraging ongoing investment in better transportation infrastructure. Okay. So let's talk about some other commute incentives, starting with cycling. With the right amenities, biking to work becomes a much more practical and appealing option for employees. You could start with the basics: secure bike parking. That could be outdoor racks, indoor storage, or lockers. New Haven, where Adam works, set a great example by investing $20,000 in a garage space at 200 Orange Street into secure bike parking lockers and a maintenance area for its city fleet. But it need not be fancy. Converting a supply room into indoor bike storage is a low-cost option. Don't have indoor space? A covered outdoor rack works too, and may qualify for a CTDOT mini transportation grant, making it either low or no cost for you. Other simple features can make a big impact, like bike repair tools, e-bike charging outlets, or even roadside repair service. Harvard University offers a quick fix roadside support program showing how small investments can go a long way in encouraging active transportation for employees. To support employees who use transit, a few key amenities can make a big difference. First, consider offering transit pass subsidies or full coverage. Programs like CT Pass, where you're eligible, or employer-paid passes can lower commuting costs and boost ridership. Some employers even cover transit passes for employees who opt out of parking. Next, offer trip planning assistance. This could be as simple as sharing resources or as hands-on as helping employees map their best transit routes. CT Rides can also help support you with tools like the CT Rides app or one-on-one help. Finally, flexible schedules are a low-cost but powerful option. Aligning start and end work times with bus or train schedules makes commuting more realistic, especially for those dealing with limited service. Together, these amenities remove common barriers to transit use and show your commitment to sustainable, equitable commuting. Supporting carpools and van pools is a smart way to reduce parking demand, cut commuting costs, and build community among employees. You can start with preferred or discounted parking for carpools. Even a reserved parking spot near the entrance can be a great incentive. If you're not sure how to get a carpool program going, CT Rides can help you organize a carpool try-it day for employees just to test the waters and see if there's an appetite for a long-term program. To keep momentum going, try carpool incentives like raffles or gift cards for regular participants. For longer commutes, van pools are a great option. Employers can offer coordination support or monthly subsidies to help cover costs. CT Rides can connect you with Commute Enterprise for more information if you're interested. These strategies support sustainable commuting and help create a more connected, resilient workplace. So since I mentioned the CT Rides app, I just wanted to be sure to share a little more about it for those who might not be familiar. It's free to use. Anybody living in the state of Connecticut can use it. And we tried to have it be like a one-stop shop. You can explore public transit options through our app. You can look for carpool and van pool matching. We kind of joke that it's like a dating service. You set up a profile and you can say, you know, I only want to drive with people who don't smoke in their car, or put other stipulations like that. You can also track your financial, environmental, and health impact. So when you track those trips you're taking that are not driving alone, it'll show you, you know, how much money you've saved, how much you've saved in gas emissions, how many calories you've burned, et cetera. It's also gamified. So you earn points when you track those trips you're taking that you can cash in for rewards. We have a $50 gift card drawing every month. along with other prizes and incentives throughout the year. And then we have, if you're not familiar, our Drive Less Challenge, Earth Day through May 31st, where you can win even bigger money. You're automatically entered into raffles to win, up to $500, depending on how many trips you take. Yeah, so moving on to infrastructure, which is one of my favorite topics. I mean, is there a more beautiful phrase in the English language than raised intersection on a state road? Like, I don't know. That sounds awesome to me. So investing in transportation infrastructure is essential for making non-driving options safe, practical, and appealing. As mentioned by the previous speakers, start with sidewalk connectivity. Continuous, well-maintained sidewalks are the foundation for walkable communities and safe access to transit. Next, consider separated and protected bikeways. These dedicated lanes help people feel safer on bikes or scooters, and they reduce conflicts with vehicle traffic, especially important on busy roads. Finally, look at mobility hubs and first and last mile solutions. These are key to connecting people from transit stops to their final destinations, whether it's through bike share programs, shuttles, or micro mobility options like e-scooters. Together, these infrastructure elements create a more seamless, equitable, and multimodal transportation network, helping more people choose alternatives to driving alone. So to close out the presentation, I just wanted to share some of CT Ride's partners saying what some of they're saying about the impact of commuter benefits in their workplace. My favorite here is prior to our partnership with CT Rides, our absenteeism rates were as high as 6.5%. After the CT Rides campaigns, our absenteeism rates were 3.7%. My executive team is very excited about that's the Emergency Ride Home program. We look forward to working with you again. So thank you all so much. I did put some information out in the hallway on one of the benches about our programs, and also if you want a free eyeglass cleaner, they're out there as well. And I'll hand it back to Nick.
So Sarah, we're going to request that you actually stay on the stage, and we're going to invite up our presenters from the first block to sit in these white chairs, and we'll have Adam on Zoom as well. So if you have a question for Adam, let us know.
Yeah, and you have a question in the audience or on Zoom, please let us know.
And at the beginning of your question, if you have a specific person you would like to answer your question, let us know, and Nick will run the mic.
Hi, good morning. Thank you all for your presentation. I'm Zenaida from PT Partners. I am a resident here in Bridgeport, and this goes for Sarah. When you talk about the programs for the CT rides, I know you speak a lot about employee benefits and stuff like that, but do you also provide this to like an organization like PT Partners that we're nonprofit? We're just, resident leaders, but we do travel a lot. And that's like one of our main issues is getting people to the events with a ride if they don't have cars.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Absolutely. So just to clarify, we do not have a fleet of vehicles. We do not provide rides. We're an information resource. That said, we work with anyone within the state of Connecticut, whether it's a large corporation, a municipality, a nonprofit, an individual. One of my favorite stories is our customer service department got contacted by a family who they wanted to take their little boy for his birthday on a train ride down to New Haven to get pizza and bring all of his friends. And so we helped them coordinate doing that because they weren't sure, which train station they should go to and which one to get off at and all that stuff. So yes, if you want to have a conversation offline, you have my, you'll have my contact information. I'd be more than happy to explore ways that we could partner.
Other questions?
I look at this and feel like in my city, Norwalk, we are so far away from these examples. And my family recently purchased an e-bike, which I absolutely love, but it's frightening to drive down these roads. And there's so much fast car traffic. And I live on Route 53. And when the state repaved it, they didn't think about putting a bike lane in, even though sound cyclists and tons of bicycling groups go on that road north to south. So I'm just wondering how we can more effectively prioritize more accessibility for more people. And the last piece is I know Department of Transportation is redoing the intersection of Route 7 and Route 15 in Norwalk. And I think it's over $60 million they're spending on making the cars be able to get off a highway onto another highway. And a lot of us spoke up about even being able to cross the street. And I recently tried to cross the street, and people are so clogged up in their cars near there that it's taking your life in your hands to cross the street between stores. So I'm wondering, when you have a congested area like that and you're putting in a new crosswalk, do you have to put in a light too in order to get people to actually stop for the pedestrians? And that's for anybody.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll touch on the CONDOT component there. I think in Stamford, we've really been working well with CONDOT. When we did our Vision Zero action plan, every single major crash roadway and intersection was on a state road, right? Which really isn't surprising, right? These are going to be your multi-lane, high-speed arterials built, through our downtowns, through our communities. So we identified that as a key concern, right? Then we work closely with the state. They have a great, whether it's District 3 in Newington District 3 or up in Newington and headquarters, they were really open to working with us. So Washington Boulevard is, quote unquote, Boulevard of Death. That goes right through downtown, 5-lane roadway. Literally the block in front of City Hall saw 4 pedestrian fatalities within a span of 3 years. Which is, terrible because that's my commute. And that's how I walk to work. But, they partner with us to do an RSA. So they, we did a whole road safety audit of Washington Boulevard. Now they're actually funding various roadway improvement projects on Washington Boulevard. So I think it's when you have that partnership with the state, you really work with them. The city's putting in a lot in terms of design. We're funding the design, the state's funding the construction, working with them, showing your work. In terms of the different improvements that we're putting out there. I would say they're very open to it. There's definitely been a large culture shift within CONDOT, just, within even the last, few years or so. I think that's a lot of credit given to the commissioner, as well as just a lot of the staff members at CONDOT too are really open to multimodal safety. So, I think that there's definitely a bright horizon in terms of improving roadway safety on state roads. It's just about setting up those relationships and working closely with them. And then, you asked a question. Yes, if you have a crosswalk, you should have a pedestrian signal. It's ADA accessible. Yeah.
We were going to ask Adam if you'd like to unmute and respond to that question as well.
Yeah, I would just add that a few years ago, Connecticut DOT adopted a complete streets directive, which requires them now, whenever they do any type of project, I think aside from purely highway projects, they do have to look at completing pedestrian networks, completing bike networks, and providing transit accommodations. So, yeah, if they have any projects coming up, they are required to do that per their own policy. So, just make sure you follow up with them on that.
Also, I think it's Southwest COG, right, would be someone who might be able to help. Is that the regional planning agency for? Oh, West COG. All right. Yeah. All right. West COG. So, yeah.
And speaking of COGS, we got a question on the chat. Sorry, I'm sitting over here so I can read this off Mike's screen. So in the chat, we got, it's great to see the work on bikeability and walkability within each municipality. I'm curious, have there been any major cross-municipality active transportation projects in the works? And we were going to have the COG perspective here from Senior Transportation Planner Devin Clark. And then if anyone else would like to jump in as well, happy to pass the mic around.
Hello, everyone. Can you all hear me? Oh, sorry. Center stage. Am I good here? Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. So to answer the question, the answer to that is yes. There are a number of different projects that happen across municipalities. Bill actually kind of touched on one earlier with talking about the project that is happening now on or in the works, I should say, in the Sacred Heart area here, along Jefferson Street. That's a project that involves a lot of different stakeholders. So the town of Fairfield, obviously, the university here at Sacred Heart, in addition to Trumbull, and the city of Bridgeport as well. So that has a active transportation component, which I think, this question was getting at. And there's, we're looking to add a multi-use path, hopefully, along Jefferson Street. And that takes, a lot of different cooks in the kitchen, you can say, to actually make that come to fruition. So, MetroCog also plays a part in that, in, identifying design funding for the project. And then, through various programs, whether it be LOTIP, State Bonding Commission, or just, private funding from the university, we're all trying to, utilize what we have in our pockets to see that project through.
We've also heard from a number of our presenters about their Vision Zero plans and their Safe Streets and Roads for All grant applications. And so both MetroCog and WestCog also, in addition to the municipal Vision Zero plans, have regional Vision Zero safety action plans. And so any municipality that may not have taken this on at the municipal level is eligible for that grant program under our grant. And as Devin mentioned, we will be looking at our high crash corridors. And I believe Luke touched on this. Many of them are on state roads. And so that's definitely an opportunity to look at things regionally. So COGs are always a great place for intermunicipality coordination. Reach out to us and we're able to serve that role, working between municipalities and then with CTDOT as well. And I think, Luke, you wanted to...
And just to that municipal cooperation, the city of Stamford and the town of Greenwich are actually working on a CT Deep funded recreational trails grant project to create a multi-use path between a park in Stamford and then a park in Greenwich. So when we're on calls with consultants, city of Stamford and the town of Greenwich, it's basically one joint project between the two municipalities where we got a lot of support from WestCog in helping set that up. So just an example again of those kind of intermunicipal projects and agreements basically.
And so we have time for just one more question in this first session. And I'll leave the mic with Luke. This is a question about STAM Forward. Love the initiative. I was curious if there are any plans to implement autonomous vehicles into the fleet.
So currently, no. One thing we're actually really proud about with STAM Forward is the majority of our drivers are Stamford residents. So we enjoy employing, residents of the city of Stamford. So obviously if they do autonomous vehicles, you eliminate that employment sector. I think there's we're letting California deal with autonomous vehicles on their streets and how that's all going. So I think, we're happy right now where we are. I think, the next big phase vehicle wise, just, electrify our STAM Forward fleet. So yeah, I did see a hand up in the back. I don't know if you're like 30 seconds or I'll leave it up to you guys.
We'll take these two questions here in the room, and the other questions that we received in the chat, we will follow up with answers to. And after this, we'll be taking a quick break if you want to ask questions during the break.
Hi, excuse me. Hi, I was interested in hearing more about tree planting and vegetative uses so that it's traffic calming. It's also heat island issues and nature-based solutions in terms of climate change. And I heard a little bit, but I didn't hear that much about it.
So I'm actually going to, if you don't mind, push that question to our next section, which is all about that topic. So we're going to have presentations and opportunities to answer that question. We have one more back here.
Hi, thanks so much. My name's Jennifer Johnson. I'm here from Westport, and my fellow resident, we've been working for 5 or 6 years as it relates to building bus shelters on the Post Road in Westport. And that's been a character building experience. We've figured out that it's quite complicated. But this goes to the issue of kind of the regional issues that we're facing that are complicated in Southwest Connecticut. On the Post Road, that Coastal Link bus has one name that goes from Stamford all the way to, or from Greenwich all the way to New Haven, but there's actually 7 different transit providers. So it becomes complicated for users to want to use the transit system because there's different apps or different solutions, and it's very complicated for us trying to figure out who would be the one to help us build a bus shelter. So my question to the panel is whether or not anyone is familiar with any efforts to consolidate any of that transportation network in Southwest Connecticut to allow that to have more seamless regional accessibility.
And Adam, if you don't mind unmuting, I'm going to pass that to you first. And then I think after Adam's response, if anyone wants to weigh in, feel free. But if anyone needs a 3-minute break to use the restroom before our next panel, feel free as well.
Yeah, I apologize. I don't have a great answer for that. I know I've been places where multiple different transit agencies, all have, one transit card and one app to get around, and it's very helpful. So I would love to see that be applied to Connecticut.
So I'm the primary staffer for the Stamford Transit District, which just does the bus shelters for the city of Stamford. CT Transit does the bus stops, but then the city does like the prep work. So it's crazy how that works. I would say, and Graham's in the room, but the state of Connecticut has a whole bus stop enhancement program where they're updating 600 plus shelters. 750 bus shelters across the state of Connecticut. I think we have about 60 or so. We can make it 70 though, Graham, to upgrade shelters across the state, working with municipalities and transit districts. So I would encourage you to reach out to, whether, I don't know who owns the shelter, whether it's the transit district or it's the town, reach out and work on the bus shelter enhancement program. It's a great program from the state. They make it really simple, really easy. And so you just get a new shelter. I mentioned before our plan of conservation and development, which we call our master plan in Stamford. One of the recommendations of that plan is kind of consolidating our transit service, because we actually have privately run transit service as well. We have Stamp Forward, we have Metro North, we have CT Transit. Really trying to get that under one kind of umbrella where you kind of pick up this mobility as a service concept, because we're also going to, we further down the line, we might want to do bike share or scooter share, but we want kind of like a seamless trip for everybody to go in one app, go from the train to the bus to a bike to get where you need to go. So that's definitely something that we're looking at in terms of our long range transit planning and working with the state a lot on that too.
Thank you to our mode shift presenters. We'll now offer those in the room a 3-minute break to grab a coffee, use the restroom while we set up for our next panel. If we did not get the chance to answer your question in the chat, we will follow up with you, and if we have time at the end. And on that last question, we do have folks from CTDOT presenting today, so we'll have lots of opportunities to ask additional questions as well. Thank you to our mode shift presenters. And we'll invite Chadwick to come set up.
Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate it. Of course.
Yeah, I guess figure out that maintenance agreement.
Okay. Yeah, however you feel.
Sorry to miss the whole thing.
No, it's fine. Thank you. Presentation was awesome. Should we have your co-hosts again? And there's a slight chance we just get really randomly. I'm getting kicked off from the Wi-Fi at random. Oh, okay.
Shelters.
So
Yeah,
it's
but
on
there's a
my
line
mind.
in like a contract with the transit that says any new shelters are actually owned by the city, but our lawyer.
Okay, your co-host again.
Shelters and transit installed, you install. So
We have two different breaks.
All right, for everyone online, we're getting right back into things. We're going to start with Chadwick. Thank you all for bearing with us as we've run a little bit over time. Huh? No, I know. I'm just talking online. Yeah. There you go.
That'd be bad.
That'd be crazy. Whenever you're ready. Should we? I'll give you the thumbs up from up there.
That's house right there.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Chadwick Short, and I run the Sustainability Office for the City of Bridgeport. Today, we're going to talk about some municipal strategies for green infrastructure. We're going to talk about community tree planting, native plant restoration, rain barrels, and then some more structural stuff like flexi-pave and permeable pavers. So starting off with community tree planting, we do a good bit of that in Bridgeport, as you can all imagine. We don't have near as much canopy as the rest of the towns in Fairfield County, but they certainly need it because we got issues with flooding, extreme heat, a whole bunch of fun stuff, and all the issues of climate change. So community tree planting takes a lot of different angles in Bridgeport. Obviously, we have our community organizations that do a lot of work like Groundwork Bridgeport, the Nature Conservancy, as well as a wide variety of partnerships and just community organizations that kind of do this work. We also do a good bit ourselves on the municipal side, specifically in our downtown. We actually replanted, I want to say about 20 in this past year. Over the last, I think, 5 or so years, we've replanted about 350-ish trees in Bridgeport. Trying to be cognizant of species diversity in the face of climate change, what's already currently planted within our city, and then also ensuring that we're actually providing habitat for our friendly pollinators. Now, tree planting, great idea. We love it. But there's a lot of challenges sometimes that come with it in terms of maintenance, watering, and making sure our trees are actually going to survive for that 150 years that we actually want them to. You can imagine that things are not always the most easy in a municipal setting, especially a downtown with a lot of polluted stormwater, extreme heat issues, reflections off buildings. So being very cognizant of how to take an intentional kind of direct step at addressing whatever your problem may be, whether it's a lack of canopy, whole bunch of concrete or impervious cover in your neighborhood, or that you don't have community investment in that canopy. One of the things we recently did this summer in an effort to try to bolster our canopy in downtown Bridgeport was we pulled up all the pavers around our tree pits or that were in our tree pits and then replanted them with native plants, hopefully to reactivate some of that ecological functioning in the soil that's been lost for a number of years, while also increasing the rate at which the water will actually go in there. Quite a few of our tree pits got to the point where they didn't really take water in. They kind of just let water go right over top. So refreshing the soil and getting new plants in is going to help prevent the compaction of people walking on top of them, and also then hopefully support those trees a little bit better for the future. Now, something a little bit more structural, flexi-pave and permeable pavers. Show of hands, how many people have heard of flexi-pave before or have used it? Good amount of people. Okay, so flexi-pave is made up of crushed up old tires. Something really good in Bridgeport, considering we have a lot of illegal dumping. It's a great end use for that product. Flexi-pave is basically just similar to like a concrete walking path, but it's actually permeable, lets your foot kind of sink a little bit, so it's a nice soft texture. We find runners really enjoy it, and then it also helps ensure that you're not going to have issues with stormwater. So this was right in front of our Margaret Morton Government Center, our downtown City Hall. I think this was installed, I want to say in 2015 or 2017. No significant issues with it. We haven't had too many cracks, pieces coming up or anything. And it also seems to help keep our tree roots underground and not buttressing up our sidewalks. Now, you can see on the right that another application for this is with our tree pits. We have found that this can help a little bit with compaction and people walking on them or the trash that gets in there. But we do see that there is a decline over time in the infiltration capacity of these. And those mats do need to be pulled up, flushed out with some sort of water or something, and then re-put back in place. So we find that the planting in the tree pits or just refreshing the soil seems to be a little bit better. You also have permeable pavers. Permeable pavers are interlocking pavers, which allow the water to infiltrate through. We have those in several of our parks, in our Beardsley Zoo as well. And then we also install them in some of our walking paths in our neighborhood parks. They seem to hold up pretty well long-term, not significant maintenance issues, but you do still have to clean them after a number of years, which can present some challenges. Now, a little bit more on the community education side. Community education and investment involvement in this is extremely important. Without your community invested, you're always going to get that call from the concerned citizen saying there's trash in my bioswale, my rain barrel's clogged, all these issues. But if you activate community members, bring them into the process, make them invested in this work, you're going to have a lot more sustainable projects. You're not going to have to go out and figure out where all your issues are in the city. You're going to have concerned residents calling. When you have training modules in place, something like what Groundwork Bridgeport put together with this Green Stormwater Infrastructure Guide, you're going to be able to make people into capable, empowered individuals that actually make your municipal services run better, run smoothly, while also reducing your maintenance and investment costs, and also making sure your staff aren't beyond capacity, because that's an issue we all deal with. We also do a rain barrel giveaway program in Bridgeport, really focusing on providing community members with the information they need and basically the access to these interventions when they probably wouldn't be able to have access to them anyway. I know rain barrels kind of run the gamut on cost. I think the ones we got were about $50, give about, I think, 75 out annually. Any interested residents able to apply, they just have to be a Bridgeport resident, and then we drop it off at their home. So there's no real pickup costs. Obviously, being aware of the neighborhood you work in and the city you work for, people in Bridgeport lack cars. If I was going to design this program and say, come on down to the government center and pick up a rain barrel, that immediately excludes residents that don't have cars, might use public transit. So ensuring that when you design programs that your audience, your intended audience, is actually at the forefront of how you're going to make sure that actually gets to them is critical. You wouldn't necessarily design this program to intentionally exclude people, but that is a very significant exclusion of you having to transport that back to your home. That's always good to be aware of when you're doing these programs. Now, this one's probably my favorite, native plant and habitat restoration. You might see a lot of plants in Bridgeport. They're very likely to just be invasives. Our favorite friend mugwort is wreaking havoc all across the city. But we're trying to fight back a little bit by reintroducing natives where we can, where it's practical, and at a community level, as opposed to a top-down, the city wants a pollinator garden here, we're going to go plant it. All of our projects are community sourced, community driven, basically giving people the opportunity to reforest their property without, a whole bunch of hurdles to jump through. So the picture on the left is in downtown Bridgeport. This is a former factory site that they leveled the factory, turned it into grass, and now we have a wonderful organization, Skateport, who runs roller skating, I think Saturdays, out of there where we close off the street and people come out. On the right of that's a beer garden for Berlinetta Brewing, which is a new brewery that opened across the street. And in between that, there was a grassy strip that basically had nothing to do. So we were approached by Tahkeena at Skateport about creating a pollinator habitat here. So basically behind this picture is another, I think, 5,000 square foot garden that runs perpendicular to this garden you see. That was, 2 years worth of activity, people coming together, but only 2 real days of planting and probably 4 days of maintenance. Our DSSD, our Downtown Special Services District, waters all that and makes sure that that's our biggest issue, is making sure it stays watered. But it has completely changed the way our downtown looks. And this site, if you can see kind of where that concrete ends on the left side of the trailer, that also spills into our pollinator garden now, instead of causing more stormwater entering our sewer system. On the right, you'll see what looks like just a whole bunch of plants next to some community garden beds. This was actually in our east end of Bridgeport, where instead of planting a garden that maybe not was going to get maintained, the community said that they would prefer to give out native plants to their community members at their farmers market or at their community food hub, the East End Energy Market and Cafe, through our City Fresh program. Basically taking whichever way makes sense for community members to engage with this work, address it in their own community. That's how we address a lot of the challenges and opportunities that come with this work in green infrastructure. 2 other quick projects to mention are Buffers for Bridgeport initiative. Again, having grassland, next to a river course it's not really doing much. Certainly not preventing erosion, and it's certainly not, making fresher and more healthy water quality. So through the Buffers for Bridgeport initiative, Aspetuck actually worked with interested business owners, community members, churches, finding people that were willing to install one of these along their property, and maintain it for a number of years. I think they sent out about 20 of those, and they're looking to do another round this year. Extreme community acceptance. People were so excited to have those. And again, it's finding where those matches are kind of made. You have your partners, you have your collaborators, and then you have your community members. Figuring out how everyone can benefit from this without, again, overburdening the municipality, because we always have enough issues, maintenance issues. It's really figuring out how to add on as opposed to take away from. We also have right-of-way bioswales and commercial scale bioswales. So in downtown Bridgeport, this beautiful one on our left is in front of the Fairfield County Courthouse. I think it's been there about 4 or 5 years. It's doing great. Takes a little bit of maintenance in terms of trash collection, but beyond that, it's pretty self-sustaining. We actually did have an issue that came up last week, which is someone ran into the fence. They didn't take the turn correctly and instead drove straight into the back of it. Fortunately, the curbs, the plants are all fine. We just got to repair a little bit of fencing. But for that being in downtown Bridgeport, a very high traffic area for a number of years and only be hit once, that's pretty good by our standard. Our middle image is People's Bank, now M&T Bank. That's their front. A few years ago, they redid the entire front of their building to basically have all of their impervious cover drain into these giant bioswales you see in front of here. There's native plants all in there, as well as some beautiful trees. Constant issue for the city of Bridgeport is making sure our newly planted trees actually get watered. Green infrastructure provides a great opportunity to make sure that at least some water is getting directed into those pits, even if the city can't go around and actually water them. On the right over here, we actually have new bioswales. I think they installed 15 of them along Seaview Ave. This is a new design that we're trying in Bridgeport. As you can see in kind of the bottom left side, there's a concrete barrier that looks almost like an L. That's actually something new we added, which is to collect trash. Before the water actually enters the bioswale, the trash is basically dropped off and the water is able to keep moving in without the large pieces of trash piling into our bioswale and getting that all clogged up. I've mentioned trash quite a few times, so I'm gonna hit on it again. That is really the biggest maintenance issue with this, as opposed to like a long-term thing. You might have some plant loss. You might need to refresh some of the soil in there, but trash collection is probably your biggest issue. And it's not a difficult one. You just got to kind of think ahead of time how you're going to maintain all this infrastructure as you deploy it. But you have interested residents, community members, organizations that would probably be more than willing to adopt these if provided the right tools and information to actually clean it out. A few weeks ago, I was walking over here and I cleaned out like 2 of them. I had 2 different people stop and like thank me for cleaning that out. It only took like 5 minutes. I was more interested in making sure it was functioning properly than actually cleaning it out, but it was kind of like 2 birds, 1 stone. If we can have, resilient, sustainable infrastructure deployed in our community, and all it takes is us organizing a few events at the municipal level to educate our residents, to get them out, to make them feel empowered to actually address the issues, the maintenance issues that come with this, we're going to have much easier jobs at the municipality, and we're also probably going to get a lot less phone calls. And that is all my stuff. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to contact me. Happy to talk any projects, provide planting lists, budget costs, pretty much anything you guys need. Always want to just leave it on collaboration is the key to success. Find your partners, find your organizations. Everything starts with a conversation, and that's where partnerships then last lifetimes and projects succeed. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Chadwick. Our next presenter is online, Dr. Mike Dietz from UConn. I'm gonna make you a co-host real quick.
Right. Nice job down there, Chad. Nice to see you.
Mike, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. If you have your presentation there. All right, perfect.
Right. Just see if we can, there we go. All right, is it showing up down there?
Yep. You're all good
right,
to go.
very
Thank
good.
you.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for including me today. Very happy to be a part of this. Very happy to see Chad down there doing such great work in Bridgeport. And I will, oops, sorry, can you all still see my sharing? I just
Yep.
lost my, okay. Hang on just a second. For some reason, so the presentation is still showing up for you?
Yep. We still see you, Mike.
I don't know why I just lost it. Hang on just a second. Okay, there it is. I got you. All right, so I'm part of CLEAR here at UConn, the Center for Land Use Education and Research. We've been working with municipalities around the state for over 30 years now on land use issues. So I won't go into too much detail. There's the link if anybody would like to learn a little bit more. A lot of diverse stuff on the website that might be of interest to many of you. So just in case there's anyone that's new to this stuff, the reason why we're talking about green stormwater infrastructure here is the dramatic impacts that we've had as humans on the hydrologic cycle, major changes to the quantity of water that runs off now and the quality of that water due to the way that we've developed on the landscape. Fortunately, in the 1990s in Maryland, a process called low impact development was developed. And there's a lot to this besides the practices that we commonly talk about now, but and it is still used when we're basically developing new sites. There's a lot behind the scenes that goes on with that, but the practices such as rain gardens and permeable pavements, like Chad was mentioning, these have, if we're just using these in a retrofit situation, these are commonly referred to as green stormwater infrastructure now. So it's just a terminology difference here. So the first of these, rain gardens or bioretention, as Chad already described, these have a stormwater function, but I always like to highlight the fact that there's an aesthetic benefit to these too. We could easily just infiltrate water underground with a subsurface infiltration trench or something like that and accomplish the same thing. But the rain gardens bring other benefits, including aesthetics and ecological benefits like pollinator habitat. So up here at UConn, we started with our first rain garden back in 2004. It was a very small one here at one of the dorms in a roundabout that's by the entrance pathway. We progressed through the years to some larger ones as buildings and larger sites were redeveloped. We call this the linear era. So these are very large bioretention areas that had a fair amount of engineering with overflow structures, under drains, large trees, et cetera, as you can see here. And these have performed quite well through the years and have changed dramatically and really have created little habitats of their own in these areas. We also have some smaller scale ones where students have been involved with some of these projects. So disconnecting gutter downspouts from some dormitories here, directing it out to rain gardens. Here, this one is fully grown out. So a little smaller scale, we use this when we talk to some towns about residential scale gardens that might be appropriate for homeowners. And more recently on some of the larger projects, UConn has really embraced this idea of these more organic form rain gardens or bioretention areas that have the feel and the look of like a dry riverbed when it's not raining, and a true river system when it is raining. So this is at the new Science One building on the west part of campus, and some nice signage here to illustrate what this is actually doing. So a very different look and feel to these, and again, really a much stronger ecological tie-in to the surrounding landscape and for benefits such as pollinator habitat. Most recent one that we worked on here was last spring. So we had some interested students that wanted to install a rain garden. They actually got funding from the university to cover the cost of these plants. I helped out with some of the logistics here. And right next to the dairy bar, we installed this very nice rain garden that takes runoff from the roof of this building that's adjacent to it. And that very summer, right after the first year planting, which is usually it takes a couple of years to get established, but this one did very well right away. Had some nice pollinators here, as you can see, and monarch larvae growing later in the summer. And then into the fall with some nice fall blooming plants here as well. So I know somebody in the audience is probably thinking it. So yeah, those things look great, but our downtown is too dense and there are lots of utilities in the way. Engineering is expensive, and there's another reason, and there's another reason. I will agree with you. There are a lot of reasons not to do green stormwater infrastructure. It is not easy in urban areas. But just as you saw with Chad's examples from Bridgeport, I'll give you a couple of more here that will illustrate this point that it can be done even in very densely developed areas and heavily urbanized areas. So this is an area right in the core of our campus. This was some utility work that was being done on this road that's between two buildings here. So at the time they said, well, since we're tearing up this road, is there a way we could put a bioswale in this little narrow strip between the two buildings and the road? And so that's what they did. So this has performed quite well through the years. Here's another view of it on the right. And again, this is another view with those fall blooming asters, just from another perspective here. And these are not my projects. This is New Haven. I'm not sure if Nicole will talk about these two that the city of New Haven's been doing. But just like Chad mentioned, in this narrow strip between the roadway and the sidewalk, some right-of-way bioswales here. New Haven has a lot of these, more than 250 that they've been doing. And this is largely due to the efforts of Giovanni Zinn and Don Henning in the engineering department there. This is another example that they showed to us last year. So this is a traffic calming measure. So I heard the question in the audience before about this. So here's a picture of this intersection before. There's the after. So you'll notice on the left-hand side, the right-hand side, you got the bump outs there. So these are taking stormwater in and treating it. There's a pedestrian crosswalk now that slows traffic down. So I'll go back so you can see this. Again, there's the before, there's the after. So very simple, really discreet, not really jumping out at you that this is some sort of stormwater feature, but very nicely done there. And I go to DC every year for a conference for the Institute of Water Resources. And they, again, in the heavily developed core of the city, there are right-of-way bioswales there too. So taking runoff from the roadway, taking runoff from the sidewalks, infiltrating it where they can. Here's another example where they're using some artwork and some really nice signage to highlight these features and help educate people about what they're actually doing there and draw attention to them. Another example where we've got a little strip of bioretention in the middle there, taking runoff from the sidewalk. And then that bike path is made of that flexi-pave that Chad was mentioning also. So a really nice multi-function area using several different types of green stormwater infrastructure here. So as Chad mentioned, there are a variety of permeable pavements that are available. So they're nice alternatives to traditional asphalt and concrete. Not every product is appropriate for every application. UConn has tried quite a few of these. Here's a nice example of those PICPs that Chad was mentioning, those paver blocks, where we use these in what we call the snow shelf area between the sidewalk and the road. These have been very successful. It's a nice way. You wouldn't think that this would be a better alternative than grass, but that's actually what it replaced. And the grass routinely was compacted and was eroding. So they switched to this and it cut down on that erosion and infiltrates stormwater. And there's a close-up look of it. So very briefly, we'll talk about maintenance here and the importance of it. Chad did hint at this also. So despite this lying actor's smile here, if you're like me, I don't know anyone that really enjoys going to the dentist to get their teeth scraped. So I think most of us feel like the woman in this picture where we're not too crazy about that. But why do we do that? Why do we put ourselves through that routine unpleasantness of getting our teeth scraped? Well, we like to avoid the even more unpleasant thought of having a root canal. So this is what I like to say we try to avoid by spending that time at the dentist. That short-term pain really prevents us from having more expensive and more painful repairs later on. So the same thing applies to green stormwater infrastructure. It's not sexy. It doesn't get a lot of attention. It doesn't make for great photo opportunities, but it really is important to make sure that these practices continue to function as they were designed. And with a little bit of care and upkeep, they can work into the many, many years into the future. So this is just one small example, some permeable asphalt that we have here. So on the picture on the left, you can see it filling up with sediment. On the right, this was cleaned out so it can be maintained and rehabilitated. But this picture here that you see is actually the root canal version of the maintenance, because this lot was neglected for a number of years after it was installed. And so this very costly truck and heavy duty cleaning equipment had to be brought in. So there are ways to do this on a more routine basis that is less costly. And I'm happy to chat about that if anyone has questions. And lastly here, tree box filters are a nice application for urbanized areas as well, because you can fit them in that right of way where there's not a lot of space, minimal excavation required. And there are several proprietary versions of these that you can purchase. But Vic Benny did a great project in the town of East Lyme here, where they basically fabricated their own versions of these and did them for a much lower cost and installed quite a few of them throughout the town. And they've done very, very well and they had a lot of success with that. So to wrap it up, there are lots of great examples of GSI being used in the state and around the country. Not every product is appropriate for every application. And maintenance is critical, as if you didn't already know that. But I really will say it again just to make sure that point gets across. And so there's my email if you do have questions. Here's our green stormwater infrastructure section on the NEMO website with a QR code if you'd like to scan that. And I'm 19 seconds over. I apologize for that, but we can answer more questions in the question session at the end.
Thank you very much, Mike. Really appreciate it. I'll invite Nicole to present.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interject, Nick. This is Colleen. I thought you were going to have me present at 11:30 and I have to leave in 10 minutes.
Okay, go for it. Sorry, we've run a little bit over, so I'll give you those privileges real quick.
If I can share my slides, that would be great.
Yes, is it letting you?
No, it says sharing is not turned on.
Okay. Sorry about that. I'm gonna do that from this computer. Okay, try now. Okay. Sorry about that. Thank you very much for.
Yeah, sorry that
Great
I
questions
just
here.
I just have another event at noon. So let's see, I think I have swapped this. Okay, can you see my screen okay?
Yes, you're all good.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, sorry to be short with time to be able to just participate briefly, and appreciate seeing the work before my presentation because of course they're all connected. I'm going to be sharing some work of bioswale construction in New Haven, and yeah, thank you, Nick, for the invitation to share our work with you. So very quickly, you can see New Haven is also a coastal city and a population of 130,000, and just to kind of give a sense of some of the challenges that we are facing with both aging infrastructure and climate change increasing precipitation, but also more and more development in New Haven, which is adding more impervious surface. So all those conditions lead to the kind of images you see here of flooding in New Haven. And a lot of this flooding is in a low-lying area near the coast where we have some really critical infrastructure, like you see on the top left, which is our train station, but it's also right near our main police headquarters and other kind of sensitive key spaces in the city. So this is the challenge that the bioswales are helping to address. And everyone's already heard a little bit about bioswales, but you can see here on the design on the left, New York had been doing bioswales well before New Haven. And so that's their image on the left. And I should say, and thanks, Mike, for that introduction about the work in New Haven, it is led by Giovanni Zinn and Don Henning, and even predates Giovanni. The first bioswale was built in New Haven in 2013 with his predecessor. But they now have what they call a Green First strategy about preventing runoff before it even gets into the sewers. And so because New Haven is fortunate to have such sandy soils, it makes bioswales very effective here. So the motivations for the bioswales in New Haven are both about that flooding, but also about addressing water quality. So we started with using this design scheme on the left, and then you can see on the right a bioswale that's in front of Edgewood School that we constructed in partnership with Save the Sound, who I know you're going to hear from next. And the first bioswale we did in 2013 was really to stop some road flooding, and then we got a small grant to do another 6. So we've been kind of piloting at first with the City Engineering Department, URI, the Urban Resources Initiative, which is based here at the Yale University, and Emerge, which is a nonprofit that serves formerly incarcerated adults returning to the community. So those are the partners that have worked kind of closest on a lot of the bioswale construction, like you can see in that image on the right. We've also been working with Yale faculty, Gabe Benoit, you can see down in the storm drain, and his graduate students to really understand first with a pilot grant that we got from NIFWIF, the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. And this is on a project we did on West Park Ave where we installed 6 bioswales and then had a control. And you can see that they were doing both with measurements in the bioswales as well as down in the storm drains to measure both the impact on water quality and water quantity avoided. I'm not going to get too much into the science of their research, but you can see here in this downtown bioswale area that we did most intensively, that you can see the areas shaded in yellow and green were 2 study areas where Professor Benoit studied that water quality and water quantity and found over 70% of the runoff on those streets was being captured by the bioswale. So they're proving to be really effective. So there's nearly 300 bioswales in New Haven. We've constructed about 70% of them, and it cost about $14,000 per bioswale to construct. So I'm going to focus on this downtown area because it's an area, like I said before, where it's trying to, in that this idea of sewer shed, that looking at where those sewers flow together and have that impact near the train station is what the 200 bioswales were built in that region to address. And then just to kind of quickly show you some of the siting process is looking at the 50 feet before where you can see the storm drain there in yellow, that 50 feet where the water is coming down the street and going into the storm drain. We want to construct where you can see that outline in green, a bioswale in that area where we can try to capture most of the runoff from the street. But there's a lot of competing infrastructure on sidewalks that we have to address. Like you can see those arrows of examples of trees and planters and other things. You can see some more here. We used an app with Don Henning to gather this data where we would cite everything first from the hydrant to a tree to signage to parking meters and so forth to try to see where we could put those 200 bioswales in the downtown. These are just to show you 2 design iterations. On the left, you can see the fencing is different than the one on the right. And the big difference on the left is when we had done our pilot, that fencing, if you hit it, like in the case of Bridgeport, and they do get sometimes hit, the whole fence collapses and in the rigid system like that. And the fencing actually is one of the most expensive pieces for the bioswale. It cost about $1,000 per fence out of the $14,000 in terms of constructing these. And so you can see we revised on the right to have more of a post and chain as well as some granite curbing. And that allows, if you do lose one of the posts, you don't have to replace the whole fence. They're easier to pull out and repair. So these are just some more images of the construction. Because we partner with Emerge on other projects as well, including tree planting in New Haven. But this was, the construction was also designed to be done with people who have no background in this kind of work and to train them as we do the project. And it is all hand dug, and that allows for all skill levels to join this instead of having to use heavy machinery to to kind of hold, you have to dig these down 6 feet. And so if you usually heavy machinery would do that digging, but we are doing them by hand. And it also not only provides a labor opportunity, it also makes it less impactful to traffic because you're not having to close off the road. So here's some images of what that construction looks like. And you can see then we put in a geotextile fabric, and then it gets backfilled with different size aggregate stone. And then this is what it looks like when it's completed and planted. You can see in the image on the left where the safety cone is where the entrance is, where the water enters the bioswale. And we've created a little divot to make that direct the water better into the bioswale. We've also done outreach. Here's some examples of that. As Chadwick was talking about the importance of trying to reach out to the public and let them know not only what they're about, but also how they can be part of the maintenance. Mike and Chad already talked about that. It's critically important to their functioning. You can see in the right, the kind of tasks people can do to help. It includes watering the plants in the summer. But in the middle, you see leaf litter. That's one of the biggest problems we find. It's not just garbage, but also leaves, that the leaves can really block a bioswale from performing. And so it's really critical to remove that, as well as weeding. So we also created little signs like that went on the bioswale so that it helped people understand how they function. And here's another piece of this is by working with people who have that life history of formerly been incarcerated. It helps them to more successfully return home and raise funds as they're coming back and needing work for their families. So this has been an important part of the success of the work here. So my last slide here is just to say again, that point about maintenance. You can see on the left a bioswale that has not been cleaned out versus the one on the right. It is not something, everybody's saying this, but really has to be understood that it is not going to function the way that they would optimally pull water if they're not maintained. They not only become unsightly with trash, but as you can see on the left, they can get totally clogged up. And it's not just like a once a year. I would recommend ideally having 4 visits annually in different seasons. And if you don't, they just won't perform, and the public can get upset with them. And because we have so many, in New Haven having nearly 300 of them that need multiple visits annually, it's a critical long-term need for these. But I would say that all infrastructure needs maintenance, and so we shouldn't assume that green infrastructure doesn't need maintenance too. So it's no different than doing street sweeping or having trash collection. I think it should be a routine part of municipal management. And with that, I think that's my last slide. And sorry to have to be so quick, but I do have to dash to another meeting, and just thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Colleen, for presenting. Just want to let everyone know that we're very lucky and very happy to have Colleen present today. She just flew back from Europe last night, so she put this together very quickly. So thank you very much for joining us today, and know that you need to go.
Yeah, happy to be here. Bye, everybody.
I'll invite Nicole Davis from Save the Sound. Nicole, you should be.
We're going to share issues with my computer connecting.
Okay.
Can you share my presentation from there?
Of course.
Awesome. Thanks. This is one of the effects of a high heat day is technology doesn't like to function.
Just tell her to tell us when she wants us to switch slides.
Okay. We're all set.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name's Nicole Davis.
Let me know when you're ready to start.
Yeah, and I'll let you know when it's time to change.
Would you like to switch slides?
Yeah, go ahead and change slides. I'm with Save the Sound. I'm the Watersheds project manager.
Nicole, we can't hear you.
Oh, you can hear me. Is that better?
We can hear you online, Nicole.
Oh.
Thanks, Mike. Can you hear me there?
1 second, we're working.
Any better?
Yep, we could hear you.
You can hear me? Great. Hi, and thank you for the tech support. I'm stuck in a hot spot and my technology wants to function at the moment. My name's Nicole Davis. I'm the Watersheds project manager with Save the Sound. So I run our green infrastructure and watershed planning program. And I'm going to give it a minute for my slides to catch up. And so I'm going to talk today about kind of some different projects that Save the Sound has done. We've been really fortunate to do a variety of green infrastructure over the past probably 15 years. I haven't been involved in all of them. I've been with Save the Sound for about 7 years now. But we've found that there's high impact in both small and large scale green infrastructure, and the impacts that both those projects have is completely different. So for those of you not familiar with Save the Sound, we're a regional nonprofit working in Connecticut and New York, working around legislative policy, climate resiliency, and then on the ground action projects and water quality monitoring. Can you change the slide, please? And so thinking about this panel and what the other panelists were hopefully going to talk about, for me, it really came down to what makes a successful project. You know, Mike's really talked about how UConn has embraced green infrastructure and literally worked with municipalities and partners to get different projects out. Colleen really dug into the bioswale projects in New Haven, which is fantastic. And Chad was talking about all the initiatives that are going on in Bridgeport right now. And what I found looking back at Save the Sounds project is regardless of the scale of the project, the 4 things that really make a project successful are making sure that you've got community engagement and education, that you're flexible throughout the project, both with your project planning, with your thought process behind it. And then even once you hit the ground and you're in construction, you never know what you're going to find. And then the last thing, the most important thing, if you could just hit the button, is maintenance. And I am so glad that that Colleen and Mike and Chadwick all talked about this. The maintenance piece is so huge. And to really capitalize on green infrastructure, Colleen said it, it's not that green infrastructure doesn't need maintenance, it needs different maintenance. And so as we're thinking about changing our mindset around grayscale infrastructure, we really need to be planning about how it's going to be done, who it's going to be done, and when it's going to be done, right? All projects look good 1 month after construction, but 3 months after construction or 6 months after construction, it all depends on how they're being taken care of. And then the last bit is partners, right? None of us can do this work alone. We all bring something different to the table, and really having vested partners at the municipal scale, at the nonprofit scale, and at the local scale really makes for success. So I'm going to really talk really quickly about 2 projects that Save the Sound recently completed. But it's kind of really that same idea that size doesn't matter. It's the impacts that you bring. Sometimes it's educational benefits around small scale green infrastructure like rain gardens, or what you see in a bioswale, taking that pressure off the sewer system, or larger scale projects that are highly visible. But for me, the success of a project really depends on something that continues the conversation around stormwater, right? We all are upset when we have a big rainstorm, when it floods, but people forget really fast once it stops raining. And so the other piece of this is how do we keep that conversation around stormwater and the need to manage stormwater kind of closer to where it falls, not sending it through a pipe at the forefront of every conversation. Next slide, please. And the first project I'm going to talk to you about is the Mill River Trail Green Infrastructure Corridor, which is a project in New Haven where we converted a dead-end abandoned roadway that had been used for dumping in an underserved neighborhood in New Haven into a community green space. It's approximately 3.5 acres of drainage area that now is diverted into 2 bioswales on the north and the south side of a walking trail that is part of a larger Mill River Trail design project. What's attractive about this project isn't just the green infrastructure value, but it's also located next door to a public pre-K through 8 school and just a block away from a private elementary school, which provided a number of opportunities to engage students and kind of start that conversation with 2nd and 3rd graders around what green infrastructure is and why we're planting and why we care about where stormwater goes, and getting kids out to kind of look at the dirt and look at the substrate and look at the rocks, not just about here's the sewer and the water goes in here. And it's had an opportunity to also bring continual involvement over the last few years. This was the first project implemented out of the Mill River Watershed Plan. So it was really developed with a lot of partners and a lot of vetting from both New Haven, the Mill River Watershed Association. Cheshire Land Trust was super excited and supportive about this project, recognizing kind of the capacity of expanding green spaces in the lower parts of the Mill River Watershed. And then we were also partnering with the Mill River Trail Associates, and it was funded by a number of partners. And kind of the logos at the bottom are really just a snippet of the number of partners that were involved in this project. And what really kind of cinched the educational value and the collaborative value of this project, next slide, please, was that kind of serendipitously during construction, kind of a rundown industrial building across the street from the parks was commissioned by an arts nonprofit to paint a huge full-scale mural on 3 sides of the building, which really helped not only to transform kind of the intersection where people didn't value this area and really saw it as a dumping ground into something that was kind of noteworthy. And then since construction has stopped, the local farmers market has bought the building. They're working with a local composting facility to buy the project across the street and really kind of transform this neighborhood. They're holding monthly events, kind of closing off the road. So there's really kind of this showcase piece that not just deals with stormwater, but really kind of community rebuilding and resilience. Next slide, please. And then the second project I wanted to talk about, it's also a bigger scale project. And what I don't want people to get scared off by is the size of this. What's really cool about the Hampden Town Center Park project, it was done 100% by a municipality. And so it's just something I don't want people to lose sight of. You know, people talk about engineering and design being kind of expensive, but a lot of communities have in-house tools or partners that have in-house tools that can really make a project happen. So this is what Hampden Town Center Park looked like in 2018. These pictures are from a half-inch rainstorm. So there's a large outfall in the picture to the left that collects stormwater from a 78-acre drainage area. And the area is primary suburban residential with kind of a little bit of a commercial corridor built in there. And it's approximately 76% impervious, which means there was a lot of stormwater kind of coming to this one outfall that was degraded. The plunge pool was completely filled in with sediment. The area around it had been completely overgrown with invasive vegetation. And so it wasn't infiltrating at all, and water was sheet flowing into the park. And what was cool was, next slide, please, working with the town of Hampden to kind of design this project, we converted the project into a 40,000 square foot rain garden. So the exact same idea as a residential rain garden where you take a downspout and lead it into a rain garden. This took a outfall and turned it into exactly the same thing as the projects Mike was talking about, just at a larger scale. Next slide, please. And this is what it looked like at the end of construction. And what's even cooler about this is it wasn't just designed by town engineering, it was built almost entirely by Public Works. So this is something that can be done in-house at large scale, small scales, is all scalable. The idea is really to kind of capture stormwater. And next slide, please. And then again, this couldn't be done in isolation. We had about 500 volunteers that kind of rallied and kind of helped with this project with planting and maintenance and stewardship. Long-term, the city or the town of Hampden has committed to maintaining the infrastructure around the green infrastructure project, kind of the plunge pools and kind of different vegetated areas and mowing appropriately around it. But the Hampden Land Conservation Trust has also taken on stewarding one piece of it. So it's kind of this idea that it takes a village, right? It takes all people coming together to really build these successful projects. Next slide, please. And then it's always important to remember to celebrate your success. This is what the project looked like before it was planted, which was incredible. It completely transformed this kind of turf grass and overgrown invasive vegetation into something really scenic and beautiful. But what's even more impressive is when it's full. Next slide, please. And this is what I think success looks like, right? It's that we've put all this time and effort in. It's not that the rocks are in the right place or that you have the right people here. It's that it's actually capturing stormwater and people have something to talk about. We have signage. We have one sign right now at this project, and we're looking to put 3 more in to kind of enhance the educational value. But when it's full, this project's designed to hold approximately 480,000 gallons of stormwater. And so since the project was completed in 2023, it's filled countless number of times and it's only overflowed 6, but that's a lot of water that's not being diverted to the closest stream, which is just on the other side of the park. And then just bringing this back to the work that's happening in Fairfield County in the coming months. Save the Sound's currently partnering with Chadwick and the city of Bridgeport to develop design standards and for bioswales, kind of similar to the project that New Haven's doing, and then to install 3 of those demonstration bioswales as kind of vetting the design process in the West End, West Side neighborhood. As part of that, we're also going to be holding maintenance training, which will be open to all municipalities in the area who are interested in participating, to really kind of learn the how and the why that you need to maintain green infrastructure and kind of practice within this demonstration bioswale. And then the last piece is we'll be holding a residential rain garden training and installing a rain garden, kind of really capturing how these pieces come together. We're also working on a living shoreline at Ash Creek that's going to use dredge spoils to revegetate a tidal marsh. And then we're in the planning stages of working with Beardsley Zoo to really kind of pull these kind of green infrastructure ideas together into kind of a learning laboratory at the zoo, where a suite of projects will be installed on one of the animal habitats so people can interact at the zoo with kind of different practices. We're looking at doing a bioswale and a larger scale bioretention system, possibly a small rain garden and a green roof, where people can really interact with these without having to walk into a roadway. And the last slide is my contact information. I know that was really rapid fire, but I know everyone is probably hungry, and it's been a really great presentation. So thank you.
So we're actually not letting you eat just yet, but we would like to invite our presenters from this previous block of presentations to join us. Nicole, if you're able to stay online, I know Colleen had to run to another meeting. And we'll do about 5 minutes of Q&A. If you are online, feel free to enter your questions into the chat and Mike will let us know.
I did see, maybe I can just go while you're figuring that part out. I saw the question about the FlexiPave, if that was an option for vehicles or emergency vehicles. So Chad, I'm not sure which, if you just have the straight FlexiPave that's there, we've had a little of that at UConn here too. I think the basic FlexiPave is good for sidewalks and playgrounds and stuff like that. They do make another product that has some harder aggregates, like stone aggregate, mixed in with the recycled rubber. And that can be used for parking spaces and parking lots. I don't know if that is able to support fire trucks and emergency vehicles though. Chad, I'm not sure if you have any more info on that.
Most of our applications have been sidewalk pedestrian mainly.
Gotcha.
And my question is also about FlexiPave. I'm just wondering about the toxicity of it in terms of rain and runoff from it.
I personally haven't seen any big issues. Our main issue we try to address with that is extreme heat. A lot of concrete, tires absorb a lot of thermal energy. So putting that in appropriate applications is important. Matching it with tree planting is obviously the best of both worlds. You get the infiltration of the sidewalk, but then having the trees to mitigate the extreme heat.
Income lines, if you will. There are very wealthy people that have second homes or have become primary residences as they get old enough. And they have friends, across economic lines.
Talking right now.
Doctors, truck drivers, and some doctors. We talked about that as being one of the things that they found appealing. They weren't insulated within their thought ghetto, if you will.
One thing.
So,
can I just talk?
Okay, I don't know if
Are you able to
he was
mute
asking a
on their
question,
behalf?
an anecdote, but
We have another question here in the room.
Yeah, I had a question regarding the maintenance. Have any of you done any return on investment, cost benefit analysis of the maintenance of green infrastructure versus your traditional infrastructure as far as ongoing costs? So making sure that you're including the maintenance costs in that, and how does that pan out versus doing traditional infrastructure?
We haven't done the math on that for UConn, but the University of New Hampshire published, I guess it was a journal article, and I can find this and send it to you if you'd like. If you can, I can write your email down if you can put it in the chat. But they did do this life cycle analysis of green versus gray infrastructure with the maintenance factored in, and I'd be happy to send that along.
We have another one here in the room.
Good morning. I guess almost afternoon now, everybody. Thanks for the time presenting today. I really appreciate a lot of the insight. Chad, I think you had mentioned in your presentation about finding ways to intentionally incorporate and build that community capacity as a result of like the city's initiative. What strategies, techniques do you have for other state agencies or other municipalities who are looking to not only just inform community members about what they're going on and include them, but actually build that community capacity across the different initiatives?
Appreciate that question. I'll start off with saying that public meetings don't work. They just don't. Anyone that tells you a public meeting is going to get your community members out is just wrong. You really got to figure out who your audience is. So if you're looking to get people in like K through 12 engaged, you first find your school district, your board of education members. If they're involved in the school, that's important. You want to find someone that's actually a champion for your project. I am going to pick on Zenaida in the audience. I work with her quite a bit at PT Partners. I'm at PT Public Housing Complex. They're between a water pollution control authority, a trash incinerator, some asphalt plants, and some other stuff. They came to me with a project saying we want to put some native plants in. That was all just like an idea. So I then, you have a meeting with them, you learn about like, what are they looking to do? Is it for the kids? Is it for them? Is it to, address some stormwater issues on site? Really digging into what's the actual purpose here. And then figuring out like, okay, where do their expertise drop off a little bit and where do ours pick up? And how can we ensure open lines of communication around that? I think honesty and communication are the biggest ones with community members. You got to make sure they feel welcome to call you. You got to make sure they feel welcome to approach you, to email you with questions. And sometimes in a place like Bridgeport, making sure people feel comfortable not knowing is also important because people don't always want to admit that they don't know something. But meeting them where they're at, wherever that may be, and providing the resources and empathetic and kind of, I always say you're along for the journey, not the solution. That's the ultimate goal. A project may take 10, 15 years. I'm working on one with the Nature Conservancy that's 13 years in the making. But the community members are so appreciative that they keep coming back, that they remember their issues, that they remember their names. It's really about that relationship and fostering that relationship. And once they get to a point, those community members are going to start proposing projects to you, asking if you need help in other spots in the city. It's really just about finding your champions and working with them and building those relationships.
Thanks, Chadwick. We're going to take one more question in this section, right here in the room. And we're going to transition straight into our last section after this. So now's a good time if you need to grab a coffee or use the restroom.
Hi, Chadwick, Pippa Bell Ader from the Green Village Initiative. We're one of the partner organizations that works with Bridgeport. We do have a Tree of Heaven problem, which I know you're well aware of. I'm asking anyone if they know about funding to remove the trees of heaven, because that can be quite expensive. And I'm just wondering if anyone here has any ideas.
I know the Deep Trees for Communities grant program that I think is due the end of August. The city is looking to apply for some money to hopefully abate some of the tree of heaven. The Ash Creek Conservation Association actually did that. I think they got rid of about 100 plus and then replanted with native trees, came in around $55,000-$60,000. So it is feasible and practical. I think we might need some state dollars, though, directed in an intentional sense to all of our municipalities to really abate that issue, especially along our I-95 corridor.
Yeah, we'll have this response right here, and we'll also invite WestCog up to the stage to start setting up.
There's actually a website for One Tree Academy where you can actually research the area that you're looking at with all the trees. They have people that you can speak with if that's something that your community doesn't want. That is something they can start your path on and point you in the right direction that you're going. Thank you.
Thank you to our presenters virtually, Michael, Nicole. We appreciate you making it work with us today, and we'll be sharing everyone's presentations and resources after this, and anyone who's open to sharing contact information as well. We'll follow up with questions, and looking forward to incorporating all these great ideas into our plan. So our last section here, thank you for sticking with us for the third block of these presentations is focused on, we tried not to brand this as electric vehicles. We think it's broader than that, electric mobility. In addition to technology in general, we've heard that ITS and signal upgrades can have a secondary benefit of reducing idling. So we've got some great presentations, starting with Westcog, who's working on updating their electric vehicle study.
Yep, sharing the screen right now.
We've got Todd Fontanella and Amal Malik with us.
No, I'll tell you to do the next slide.
Which one?
It's just the middle one, yeah.
Rob, would you like this mic?
Actually, it's going to be Amal first. Yeah, I guess I'll take this one.
They're both live though, so. Okay, guys, go ahead. All right, thank you.
Hello, my name is Amal Malik and I'm an associate planner at Westcog. No.
Whoops.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, and I'm Todd Fontanella with Western Connecticut Council of Governments, a principal planner.
So today we're going to be presenting on municipal considerations for alternatively fueled vehicles. Back in 2017, Westcog put out a study on electric vehicles and charging stations, and we used DMV data to get a sense of where things stood with EV adoption and charging infrastructure across the region. Since then, we've updated and expanded that report to give a broader and more up-to-date look at where things are headed for our municipalities. Today, we're going to walk you through some highlights of that new paper, and we'll touch on where EV adoption currently stands, the main challenges local governments are running into, and what the road ahead might look like. What we're sharing today is based directly on conversations we've been having with municipal leaders, so it's rooted in real-world experience. It's not about critiquing efforts, it's more so about helping towns and cities be better prepared for the emergence of EVs in the transportation market, which we're excited about. And we won't have time to dive into everything, but we'll cover the most important takeaways. And if you're interested in the full alternatively fueled vehicles paper, it's available on our website for everyone to check out. Next slide, please. Just a brief overview about who we are. We represent the Western Connecticut Council of Governments, one of 9 regional councils established by the state to help municipalities collaborate on shared issues and align with state plans. And our council is governed by 18 mayors and first selectmen. Next slide. And for the agenda, we'll be giving you a brief outline of our existing conditions we came across in our research, covering the topics of technology, automobiles, transit vehicles, freight vehicles, infrastructure, and policies and incentives. And then we'll be giving a summary of our findings and considerations while highlighting the key takeaways. And I'll hand it off to Todd to go over the existing conditions.
Thank you, Amal. So getting started with taking a look at technology, there's a lot of dynamism in the EV industry today. Almost all manufacturers offer some EV alternatives. Manufacturers are working to increase driving range, improve charging times, and managing performance in extremes of hot or cold weather. Controlling battery pack temperatures is a priority, particularly with transit vehicles, as low output or potential damage to the battery pack are consequences. For advanced smart technologies, some vehicles are being fitted with autonomous driving capabilities and different battery pack materials. Vehicles themselves are being designed for a wider range of trim levels and lighter weight. Meanwhile, while the vehicles are improving, efforts are being made to expand fast charging networks, in-home charging options, and solar charging applications. So with respect to automobiles, EVs definitely appeal to proponents on the promise of lower maintenance costs, the lack of tailpipe emissions, and financial incentives. Energy efficiency, which is estimated at about 70% versus 11 to 27% for internal combustion engine vehicles under ideal conditions, are promoted, although the methods of calculating EV efficiency are currently being reevaluated. Currently, a market shift to EVs is about 9.1% nationwide for new car sales, and in Connecticut, about 60,000 EVs are registered, or 2.7% of all registrations. They're highly concentrated in Fairfield County, with some also in Hartford County. Recent information from the American Automobile Association and other sources indicates that consumer interest is changing as the percentage of sales of new EVs are declining slightly while used EVs are increasing. With respect to transit, and we'll hear from one of our colleagues coming up on this in greater detail, I believe, the transit industry has been moving forward with battery electric bus acquisitions subject to available funding and supply constrictions. Note that there are only 2 Buy America compliant battery electric bus manufacturers that meet US DOT requirements at this time. Transit operators that were early adopters have had mixed performance results. Some have reported favorably, others have had to take buses out of service to address maintenance issues. The bankruptcy of Proterra, which was an early supplier of battery electric buses, exacerbated this issue. To implement battery electric buses on the scale that's envisioned, significant investments in buses, charging equipment, fire suppression infrastructure, and storage facilities are required and remain to be undertaken by most of the transit operators. In the meantime, internal combustion energy bus purchases, extended use of existing buses will be necessary to maintain service on some lines. Also bear in mind that battery electric buses in some fleets may need to be procured on a 2-to-1 ratio or other to meet route and schedule requirements, and they are significantly more expensive than traditional buses. With respect to freight, there are about 30 companies currently making heavy-duty electric trucks. In the US at this time, about less than 1% of US trucks are currently electric. Electrification of light and medium-duty freight vehicles has been well publicized, particularly by Amazon using Rivian-built trucks. Westcog staff has observed that freight industry media coverage of electric freight technologies reached a peak in 2022 and 23. Companies have purchased electric heavy-duty trucks with support from grant programs. While they have been doing that, widespread deployment remains to be seen. The industry is trying to address cost, weight, range, payload constraints, and adequate charging infrastructure. So with respect to infrastructure, EV supportive infrastructure is in development. For example, Eversource's interactive map shows readiness for EVs and renewables. Vehicle-to-grid technologies allow EVs to transfer power back to the grid during peak demand, which can help microgrid stability. In the Westcog region, municipalities like Norwalk, Stamford, Newtown, Ridgefield, and Westport have installed public chargers, often supported by grants and user fees. Applications like ChargeHub, ChargePoint, and the U.S. Department of Energy's Alternative Fuel Data Center locator, as well as some EV manufacturer applications, help drivers find stations, plan trips, and manage payments with the goal of reducing range anxiety. Local policies on zoning, permits, parking, and building codes can definitely shape EV infrastructure growth. Cost management, equipment standards, ADA compliance, and utility grid roles are the keys to efficient deployment. With respect to policies and incentives, at the federal level currently, tax credits up to $7,500 for new EVs and $4,000 for used EVs are available to the general public subject to income and other eligibility requirements, including a manufacturer's cap. While the Inflation Reduction Act was to provide EV tax credits through 2032, the tax credits for both new and used electric vehicles for individual buyers are now scheduled to expire on September 30th. Federal legislation proposed to require a $250 annual registration fee for EVs and a $100 fee for hybrids was not passed in recent legislation. Grants, such as the Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Program, have supported projects associated with EVs. At the state level, rebates support EV purchases with higher incentives for low-income buyers. While there is no state charger tax credit, utility rebates are available. In 2025, Connecticut offers a standard rebate of $1,500 for new battery electric vehicles and $750 for plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. Additionally, eligible low and moderate income residents can receive a rebate plus incentive, stacking with the standard rebate for a total of up to $4,500 for new battery electric vehicles and $2,250 for new plug-in hybrids. Federal and Connecticut laws allow EV trucks to exceed up to 2,000 pounds over standard weight limits for the tractor unit only. Other proposals to raise EV truck limits have been considered. Connecticut House Bill 5544 in the 2025 session was titled an act establishing a fee and tax related to electric vehicles. Specifically, it aimed to establish a registration fee for electric and plug-in hybrid vehicles and a per kilowatt hour tax on electricity purchased at public charging stations. The revenue generated from these fees and taxes would have gone into the Special Transportation Fund. This bill did not advance. There are roles for CONDOT and the Office of Policy Management to ensure that state policies acknowledge changing federal rules, yet support EV infrastructure development. And now I'll turn back to Amal.
Thank you. Thanks, Todd. So based on the existing conditions that you just saw, we've come up with a few considerations for municipalities regarding EV adoption and deployment. So extended producer responsibility, or EPR, for batteries means manufacturers take ownership over battery disposal and recycling, which helps reduce mining, encourage reuse, and ensure safe handling at the end of a battery's life. They might slightly raise upfront costs, but it supports a more circular, eco-friendly supply chain overall. For municipal and regional transit fleets, it's important to track recall notices and repair histories, particularly for newer EV models that may still be working through early issues. Procurement decisions should be closely aligned with local service needs, taking into account factors like passenger capacity, route characteristics, and climate conditions. Collaborating with other municipalities on vehicle or component purchases can also help lower costs and shorten delivery timelines through standardized procurement. One of the biggest barriers for consumers is still the perceived cost of EVs. That's why it's important to share the full picture using total cost of ownership tools. These tools help show that over time, EVs can actually save drivers as much as $18,000 compared to gas-powered vehicles. It's helpful to highlight key cost factors like the lower cost of home charging versus fuel, reduced maintenance needs, available tax credits, potential resale value, and even differences in insurance. Home charging is still the most affordable and convenient option for many EV owners. Municipalities can look at expanding incentives, streamlining permits, and providing more public education around installing residential chargers. Encouraging home charging doesn't just ease the burden on public infrastructure, it also helps cut emissions and make EV ownership more accessible for more people. And continuing, municipalities can promote solar carports as a smart way to combine clean energy generation with protection from the elements for EVs. They can also support research into smart, low-power HVAC systems, and these can boost EV range and battery efficiency, especially for fleet or transit vehicles that spend a lot of time idling or running climate control. Strategic deployment helps municipalities focus on electrifying vehicles where it makes the most sense first. So this means prioritizing public safety vehicles, short-range vehicles, or those operating in areas with dependable charging infrastructure. Federal and state rebates play a crucial role in making EVs more affordable. However, it's important to regularly evaluate how effective these programs are, especially in terms of access. Connecticut's Clean Air Act includes key measures like tax exemptions for EVs and charger installation requirements for new buildings. And these policies are laying the groundwork for a wider EV transition across the state. And finally, access to charging in multifamily housing is still a big hurdle for EV adoption, especially for renters and lower income residents. Connecticut has set EV charging requirements for multifamily and commercial buildings, but it's important to keep an eye on how these rules are working in practice, like developer compliance and any challenges they face. Getting ongoing feedback from developers and property managers will be key to fine-tuning these policies and making sure they really deliver. And I'll pass it to Todd to finish it off with the key takeaways.
Thank you. So for takeaways, at present, adoption of EV technologies has favored light and medium duty applications principally. Transit is making advances. However, school bus applications face high costs, limited supply, and durability concerns. So technologies for long haul and heavy duty freight EVs are in development and not, from our perspective, yet mature. Addressing high vehicle repair costs and roadway safety infrastructure improvements are also necessary. And finally, battery pack manufacturing, environmental and labor concerns, depreciation, and battery disposal are challenges that need to be addressed. So with that, we'd like to thank you and we do recommend that you take a look at our larger report, which is available on the WestCog website, and we'll answer questions later. Thank you.
All right, next up, I'll invite Kevin Moss from CT Green Bank.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm Kevin Moss. I'm the Senior Manager for Clean Transportation at the Connecticut Green Bank. Feel like this presentation is well staged because there wasn't too much discussion of school bus electrification on the last presentation, and so I'll be focusing on that today. So mainly I'll have a little bit of information about our investments at the end, but I'm mainly going to be talking about our recently launched Fleet Electrification Accelerator Program. So for folks that aren't aware, the Connecticut Green Bank is was the first state level green bank created in the country, and our general mission is to use low interest financing in creative ways to bring private capital to the clean energy sector. And so we generally through all of that seek to support Connecticut state policy. And in the clean transportation space, I'd say the biggest one to consider in Connecticut is the Connecticut Clean Air Act. It was passed in 2022. And has some really ambitious requirements related to school bus electrification. So I'd say the easiest way to simplify this rather wordy statutory text is just thinking of by 2030, currently all school buses in environmental justice communities are required to be electric. And then by 2040, it's all school buses in the state. There are currently about 7,500 or so school buses statewide. It's a little bit challenging to figure out exactly how many of those are in environmental justice communities because some of them are stored in one community, but then used with a separate school district. But we think there's about 2,000 to 3,000 that would meet the 2030 requirement. And then another really big consideration with the Connecticut market is the fact that about 90% of our school buses are operated by private operators. And so that's essentially just like another stakeholder to coordinate with. So when we're planning these projects, we work with the school and the operator. One other really, really impactful aspect of the Connecticut Clean Air Act is that for those situations where a school district is contracting its transportation services with the school bus operator, if the contract includes school bus electrification or if the operator is bringing electric school buses to that school, they're eligible to enter into a 10-year agreement. And so at the Green Bank, that really opens up a lot of investment opportunity for us because, these are expensive pieces of infrastructure, and having a longer investment timeline is really, really helpful. And then in terms of the act itself, there were also a handful of kind of state grant opportunities that were created. And then on the back end, Green Bank financing can kind of come in to fill the gaps. I also want to give a quick nod to what's happening with the Connecticut Public Utilities Regulatory Authority and our utilities in general. So for about 4 or 5 years now, they've been running a docket on medium and heavy duty electric vehicles. The 3 priority vehicles for that were transit buses, school buses, and then first and last mile delivery fleets. So like those Amazon vehicles that were mentioned on the previous presentation. I'd say that over time, the docket has gotten more school bus focused. And then just last week, there was a draft decision issued. And so there will be a kind of infrastructure incentive pilot program that seems likely to be created. So that'll help defray some of the infrastructure costs that are kind of come along with school bus electrification. I know that Graham is really excited about the charging rate updates that'll be able to be enrolled on. And so, with these larger vehicles, they tend to pull a lot of power, at once with the chargers that they use. And so the demand charges of a utility bill can be really, really high, particularly in a transit bus context. And then as well, there is this, Fleet Advisory Services program that's been created. The Green Bank has already been designated as the administrator of that program. And so we're now in the process of launching that. And for now, it's only focused on school bus electrification planning. And then a final decision is due in mid-August. And so with the fact that we've been, designated this kind of the school bus planning lead, and the fact that the 2030 requirements are really focused on those environmental justice communities in the near term, we're going to essentially be focusing all of our planning on Connecticut distressed municipalities. I think there are 34 in the state, or 34 that are affected by those 2030 targets. And so we're going to be launching all of these planning services for free for those schools. This will essentially enable them to enroll in the program, come up with a realistic plan to electrify their school bus fleets, and then eventually be able to tap into funding. But another reason that we wanted to focus on distressed municipalities is that there's a lot of funding at the state level that is essentially, tailored for those communities or only available for those communities. Those programs tend to be at the Department of Economic and Community Development. And so we're in the process now of getting to know those folks better and figure out, as schools and operators come out of this planning program, what are the state resources that are best to pair them up with. And so for those in the room, the two distressed municipalities that are in the MetroCog and WestCog footprints are listed on the screen here. Those are Bridgeport and Stratford. So if anyone is in the crowd here today from those communities, I would love to connect, because we would be absolutely thrilled to include those communities in our initial cohorts of the Fleet Electrification Accelerator. So in terms of the accelerator itself, it's going to be split into a planning stage and a deployment stage. The planning stage is essentially looking at all of the infrastructure considerations that would go into a school or a school bus operator electrifying a particular fleet. I have a few more slides on the specifics, but essentially the rationale for coming up with that plan is that it's not just a plan that's going to sit on a shelf. It's really going to be used as a funding access tool. And so I think that, folks have likely heard that a lot of federal funding at the moment is very much in flux. And I think we're likely stepping into a future where federal grants are less available and more competitive. And so as Connecticut seeks to get those limited grant dollars, I think it's really important to show that the projects that are being proposed have been really well thought out. And on the back half of the planning stage, we're also going to be launching a deployment program to kind of provide hands-on support as infrastructure is constructed and then buses are launched as well. So in terms of the planning program, obviously vehicle and charger recommendations will be a really big aspect of that. And then the other piece of it that I want to discuss as well is that on-site assessment. There was, I mentioned in the previous presentation about using the utilities hosting capacity maps to essentially assess, how much power is available at that site. And so we're going to be doing on-site assessments to kind of confirm the results from those maps and essentially come up with both like a short-term plan of, let's say there's, 500 kilowatts available at that school bus yard, figuring out, okay, with that, 500 kilowatts, how many chargers can we get in the short term? And then longer term, what is it going to cost to electrify the entire fleet? So coming up with, a really well thought out, phased and staged and realistic plan is the goal of the electrification planning stage. And then we'll look at all the funding and incentives that would be available for that project. And then on the deployment side, like I mentioned, that's really looking at getting all of the buy-in from the school board, the community, doing that initial infrastructure installation, the workforce development and training that'll be required for the drivers and the maintenance techs and all the rest, and essentially coming up with a really smooth launch that's kind of scheduled around the school year calendar to ensure that those electric buses are launched with as few hiccups as possible. And then on the investment side, I wanted to just kind of briefly explain some of the different solutions that the Green Bank can bring to bear. So I like to describe this as like a 3+1 solution. So there are, three key infrastructure assets that we can help finance. There's the buses themselves, there's the chargers, and then there's all of the potentially electric system upgrades that are required as well. And so with all of those, we're really trying to spread out those costs for as long as possible. I'd say that the years that are listed on this slide are very loose. As I mentioned before, the 10-year contracting authority between school districts and operators opens up a lot of opportunities for us. So we can, generally speaking, try to anchor the financing term to the length of the agreement. between a school and an operator. So when schools do elect to use that longer time period, it can really help on the overall cost of that financing. And then as well, in addition to the three kind of hard assets, we can also just generally bring like creative financing solutions to the table. So generally speaking, that tends to be in the form of bridge loans. And so oftentimes a community, a school, or a school bus operator, might get a grant from DEEP or from DECD, where they only receive those grant funds at the end of the project. And for schools with tight budgets, that can present a lot of hurdles just from a budgetary standpoint. So we can give them financing that's equal to that award. So then they're kind of have all of the capital they need to, get the project launched, and then they get reimbursed at the end, and then they pay off the loan. And so it just helps everything be a lot more simple from a capital planning standpoint. And so currently we have about $15.5 million of electric school bus projects in our pipeline, and our board has approved about $12.2 million of those. So we're really excited about the investment solutions that we've brought to bear so far, and think that there's a lot more potential for further green bank investment in Connecticut to support school bus electrification. And so I'd say that my ask today is just that we would love to get in touch, whether that's on the accelerator side. We have, like I mentioned, we're currently doing 2 initial cohorts just for distressed municipalities. So if you know folks in those communities, would love to get in touch with them. Or if you want to learn more about what the Green Bank can support on the investment side, I'm happy to chat about that as well. And then my email's on the screen.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Kevin, for that. I'll invite Graham Curtis, CTDOT.
You?
Hello.
My presentation.
Yeah, I'll get your presentation.
Great, thanks. You just advance it.
Right here. You've got a clicker.
Oh,
So
wow, fancy.
white is advancing.
Fancy. Great, thank you very much. I know we're running a little late, so I'll try to be as concise as possible. I was asked a little while ago to highlight the Connecticut DOT's Stanford Electrification Program, and I was actually glad to be asked because this is one of our success stories that we have in the state of Connecticut relative to electrification. First of all, the map you see there shows all the locations. There's 17 different transit providers throughout the state of Connecticut. The DOT is responsible for various levels. Connecticut, as those of you who don't know, Connecticut Transit is owned by the state of Connecticut. We basically own the buses, run the buses, and fund 100% of their operations. The 2 mandates that we're operating under, legislator and the governor's office, basically we have to be 30% electric by 2030 and 100% by 2035. This is one of the most aggressive mandates in the United States. In order to deploy this, we started planning this about 5, 6, 7 years ago. In some ways, buying the buses is the easiest part. Though my bus procurement people would disagree with that statement, but there's a lot of engineering and planning and coordination that goes into this. These are just some of the studies we've done. We did master plans for pretty much all 17 of those facilities, and we identified which ones should be prioritized. Stanford was actually, for various reasons, one of the priorities that we identified. The second step is, after you've identified the location, then you have to get into the granularity of the buses. Can the buses serve the routes? We hired a consultant and looked at the actual buses we'd have. We ran simulations of operations, and they determined that because of the relatively compact nature of the Stanford transit system, the buses were going to work most of the time. Because of the weather, that's a very interesting point. On today's date, 100% of the routes would be operated with the existing buses we have. 5 years from now, when the buses' batteries potentially degrade and in the coldest day of the year, maybe we get 75, 80% of that. So there's some contingency planning going on, but right now the buses we have will meet almost all the the transit block needs in Stanford area. In terms of one of the biggest hurdles of electrification is the availability of grid power. Kevin mentioned the capacity maps. This is actually a screenshot of one of those capacity maps at Eversource. Green, as in most things in life, green is good, red is bad. The thicker lines are the better. As you can see, The area of the south end of Stamford has got a lot of green lines, which is very good. Therefore, it determined that they had the ability to service the capacity of the garage. And we've been working with them collaboratively over the last 3 years to implement that electrification. In terms of the project, we usually don't go 0 to 100% right away. It's a major culture shift for someone to incorporate electric vehicles into their fleet. So we typically approach it in a 3-step process with a pilot, a middle term, and then 100%. The pilot install was completed in 2023. We have 5 150 kilowatt chargers, which would be considered quote unquote fast chargers, level 3. And we have 13 buses operating in the garage currently. The upgrade of the existing facility consists of, which is 39 bays. That's in construction. It's probably 50% complete, and it'll be completed early spring 2026. And then there's a new bus building that's being built. The existing garage didn't have capacity to store all the vehicles inside. Storage inside is critical for performance in the wintertime. So that project is in construction. They're working on the foundation. That'll be completed at the end of 2026. This will enable the facility to be 100% electrified capacity. It will probably be the first one on the East Coast or north of DC right now. We have ordered 20 additional buses that are going to be delivered next year to use those chargers. So we're very excited about the performance. This is just a screenshot of the 11 bus building. The initial pilot program consisted of plugs, which you're probably familiar with seeing. The newer technology now is overhead pantographs that basically come down and rest on the bus. You can see along the top there the chargers, and that gives it the ability to park the buses. The chargers come down, connect the buses, and we use software to charge over the overnight peak to minimize the load peaks and subsidize that, minimize the impact. In terms of where this fits into the bigger plan, so as I mentioned, this is a chart, shows the years along the bottom. The 2 stars are the milestones that we're subject to. 2030 is 30%, and 2035 is 100%. The vertical bars are the overall capacity. I should say the Connecticut Transit System, which is the Hartford, New Haven, Stamford systems, is about 600 transit buses. So each bar represents a capacity. As you get to the top, it's 100% capacity, and each incremental increase is a project that's coming online. As you can see, the Stamford ones are some of the first projects that are identified, and completing Stamford phase 1 and 2 will be completed in 2026. The key here is to have the capacity bar above the fleet. The black line is the fleet availability. We have, as I said, we have about 600 buses. We replace about 60 buses every year, 50 to 60 buses. A bus basically lasts 12 years. So that's major. Our milestone, our key is to stay ahead of that curve to meet the milestones. And Stamford has been one of because of the availability of power and the system setup, it was chosen to prioritize that. The other ones in the other areas, Hartford and Waterbury and New Haven, are also on there in various pilot stages right now. So that's the truncated version of my speech. Hope we get to build back on schedule.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Finally, I'd like to invite Daphne Dixon down to speak. Just clear. Oh, wait, let's go forward. Let's go back. It's on. Sure, it's going. And then there you go. Whatever.
Okay. Hey, everybody. I'm Daphne Dixon. I'm Executive Director of Live Green Connecticut, and we've been around for about 15 years. Inside Live Green Connecticut, we host the Clean Transportation Coalition of Western Connecticut. That coalition is designated by the Department of Energy's Vehicle Technologies Office, and it has been serving Litchfield County and Fairfield County for over 30 years. I love EV zoning regulations. I just love zoning regulations. My love affair with zoning regulations began in 2010 when I started 10 years of service on the Zoning Board of Appeals in Fairfield. I served on that board for 10 years, and I learned a lot about zoning, and I learned a lot about the power of zoning. So I'm here today to talk about how certain zoning regulations can help reduce the risk in municipalities. But who am I to be telling planners and municipalities what to do? So I want to tell you a little bit about myself so you understand where I'm coming from and how much I care about this and how I really want to help. So United Illuminating sponsored some municipal EV readiness studies back in 2019. And when we did those studies in some towns in Fairfield County, it's a long time ago now, right? We learned that when it came to zoning regulations, towns really weren't too interested. They really weren't sure EVs were actually going to stick around. So what we learned was that there was a lot of room to grow. We ended up getting a grant from the National Renewable Energy Lab to actually put together a EV zoning regulations blueprint, which was a community formed way to help towns pass zoning regulations. It was one of the first community informed projects that we did. We also got a grant from NREL and from Connecticut Deep to actually work with Westcog and Ralph Blessing and Stanford and others to put together model EV zoning regulations. Where I've gotten a lot of my experience around charging is doing 3 coast-to-coast EV road trips. So I've driven across the country 3 times, twice with our program manager and once by myself, in all kinds of situations, rural, cities, in 45 states. So I got a lot of experience. And what I found is whether you're in Fairfield, Connecticut, Fairfield, Ohio, or Fairfield, California, the charging challenges are kind of the same wherever you go. We've provided a lot of training to municipalities. And what was the best part about doing a lot of training and workshops with municipalities is all the things that I learned when I was trying to serve municipalities on learning about zoning regulations. We also have a grant from EPA where we're working with a town, which I won't name, in Fairfield County to help create a better user experience through zoning regulations. So these are just some of the projects. Again, I talked about the readiness study. What that led to was a 12-week program that was sponsored by Connecticut Green Bank. Thank you very much. And that program was a quick overview on municipal EV readiness. One of the modules in that program was in the municipal EV readiness program was one specifically on zoning. And I was surprised, but that was the most well-attended one of all of them. We had about 80 towns participate in that program. It was a 12-week program. It was a lot of fun. And after we did that program, we offered a 9-month program, and 20 municipalities throughout the state participated in that. One thing I wanted to know was, what was the one thing that all towns wanted to know about? And much to my surprise and delight, it was actually EV zoning regulations. So that's how all of this started. It was because the towns were saying, no, we want to learn more about zoning. So this is how a lot of this all went. We did more trainings. We did the regulations. And what I'm here really to talk about is there's a lot of different zoning regulations that towns can pass. And a lot of towns in Westcog have passed EV zoning regulations. Stanford has the most comprehensive. Ralph Blessing has really done a great job. I know a lot of other towns have passed EV zoning regulations. But when it comes to reducing risk for municipalities, it really comes down, in my opinion, from all the charging I've done to the supply equipment standards when it comes to the cords and to lighting. That picture was taken in LA after our first successful road trip. So benefits of retractable cords. So I don't know how many of you have an EV or have charged, but those cords have a severe trip hazards. And there are municipalities that have actually been sued because people have tripped on these cords. So the tripping is really a potential risk that municipalities are going to want to start thinking about. When the cords are on the ground, they get damaged by weather. They can get damaged by snow plows, by shovels, and also operational efficiency is much better when these cords are retractable. So again, with the retractable cords, if you have these cords, you're potentially going to avoid people getting hurt. We don't want anyone getting hurt charging EVs, right? And we don't want any lawsuits. Also, lighting is very important because vandalism, we all know when something's not lit, there's more of a chance of vandalism. We want people to be safe. So it's really these retractable cords and lighting that are 2 very important things that we can zone for in our municipalities. And of course, we want our towns to be nice. We want when people are charging, we don't want them to go, oh, I don't want to go to XYZ town because, I don't feel safe or I don't like their chargers. So back to one of our grants, our EPA grant in one of the cities in Fairfield County, we did site assessments of all the charging stations. And then we also did surveys with community members. We did community outreach events. And from our site surveys that we have developed in this one particular city, which I won't name, most of the chargers just don't have lighting. Now, this is typical of most towns across the country, across the region, and here in Connecticut and here in this part of the state. So in our last EV road trip, what we did was we created these site assessments based on how EV zoning regulations could improve the charger experience and make it safer. So this is a site assessment from Loon Mountain. It's actually about a 15-page assessment, so I wasn't going to bore you with doing all of that. There's the categories there that the questions are under. The site assessments that we do take about 20 minutes, and they're really interesting, and they really give you an idea of how that site rates. And we did that last year on all of our chargers across the country when we went across, and we're doing it again this year, where every time we stop and charge, we do one of these site assessments. And I'll tell you, they really are kind of very similar no matter where you are. It's really interesting. So a suggested pathway for municipalities, for the planning departments. A lot of times people, I think, who are in planning, they might not have an EV. Maybe they don't even know what it's like to charge. So I would just suggest that if you are in the planning department and you're looking at doing zoning regulations, call me up. I'll come out with my Chevy Equinox that I borrow from Leo Carl Chevrolet in New Canaan. And I'll let you charge it, see what it's like. Look at the chargers you already have in your municipalities. Take one of our site assessments and use it, or create your own, but just take a look at it. See, gosh, maybe we do have some different sort of risks here that going forward we could change by having some zoning regulations. Look at the chargers that you're allowing into your municipality. We currently are working with a company. We have a grant that the deadline is in a couple of days, where we actually have no cost retractable chargers that any town in Fairfield or Litchfield is eligible for. So if you want a no-cost charger that has a retractable cord, call me up and let's see if we can get you one. And then, look at the zoning regulations you already have, or if you don't have them, prioritize what's most important. You can spend a lot of time. I know you're very busy, planners are very busy, but prioritize what's going to have the biggest impact for your town. Probably safety. You want to reduce your risks. And then, planners like to plan. So we offer step-by-step workshops. We will help you with any language. We have the model zoning regulations that we've worked on with some folks at Westcog and also with Ralph Blessing in Stamford. We're happy to share those with you. We're happy to share our site assessments with you. And we're just happy to be here and talking about EV zoning regulations that can help reduce your risk in your municipalities. And that's it from me. Thank you.
So we're over time here. So we will do just a quick 5 minutes for our last of questions for our last group of presenters. If you'd like to join us up here in the white chairs, I will warn you, there is a group of young camp boys itching to get into this room. So we're really going to cap it at 5 minutes. We'll take any additional questions you have. If you want to continue to mingle in the hallway after the event, Nick can write down questions as well. Looking forward to continuing the conversation. And of course, we'll be here tomorrow at 10 a.m. for our last in-person one of our taking action workshops, which is the buildings workshop. So we'll go straight from questions sort of to breaking. And I apologize in advance if we get some camp boys in here in 5 minutes. Yeah, maybe they want to know about EVs.
I just wondered, being an EV driver myself, about the elephant in the room, which is broken chargers. for instance, I'm a ChargePoint customer and there's supposedly a ChargePoint charger at Sacred Heart. But then when you actually look at the map, there is not one. So is there a way that revenue could be generated by municipalities for, can we tax places where there are chargers that are not functioning? Stop and Shop is another one. They have broken chargers. And it would be great if these chargers worked, but a lot of them don't.
Thank you. So any site host, municipality or business can make revenue from a charging station. As far as broken chargers, you know, if you have the right zoning regulations, either in building or in zoning, where, you know, you require certain maintenance agreements, it makes it a lot easier to get the chargers fixed. So it comes back down to how are the towns managing those charging stations and what rules and regulations are they putting in place so that when chargers get broken, they get fixed quickly.
Hi, so it's my understanding that the gas tax is how we fund our roadway maintenance. And since electric cars don't use gas tax, is there any plan on replacing that funding?
There had been a proposal active in the Connecticut legislature during the 2025 session to institute a fee or a yearly fee on EV ownership to help replace some of the revenue that would go into the special transportation fund. That bill was not approved in this round. I'm sure it will come back up again in a subsequent round.
Any other questions in the room? See any in the chat? All right, well, feel free to follow up if you do have additional questions. Nick and I shared our emails. There's also a flyer that you can stop by and take on your way out with our presenters' contact information on there as well. Thank you for coming. We hope to see some of you tomorrow or next week on Zoom for our community choice aggregation workshop, which is virtual only and on Wednesday, July 23rd at 10 a.m. Thank you.
You all.
Thanks for everything.
Thank you. See you.
Yeah, you as well.
So you guys.
Yep.